and Cubelic in the morning. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order, John Saber here with you. I guess we can kind of keep the conversation going because, with Auburn putting the pads on for the first time during spring, we know what Alabama's been doing since spring football has happened. Of course, we're going to talk Sweet 16 later on in the show. We'll have Eric G from Fayetteville, Arkansas, discussing the Razorbacks and find themselves in the Sweet 16, kind of giving you a little bit of a preview. Because, when you look at the Sweet 16 with 7 of the 16 teams being from the SEC and something we've seen all regular season long, it's kind of no surprise. But the only surprise we really got is the Cinderella is a hog this year. Like Coach Cal, of all coaches, of all teams, we're looking at Arkansas as quote unquote being the Cinderella of.
You usually never see a Cinderella that's a hog, though. Usually it's something else. It's not a hog, though.
Oh. It's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Maybe a wildcat.
I was thinking another type of large cat.
A cougar, maybe.
Yeah,
that's
Cinderellas can be cougars. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely not a hog.
If the shoe fits.
Huskies sometimes.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking like specifically this.
Definitely a tiger.
What about a gator? Well, I guess
no.
Can't be a gator.
No.
That just don't
too
work. Scaly.
No.
Bulldog,
but maybe not in a good way.
No.
No.
Okay, so if everybody's so up in arms about, this March Madness is so frustrating because all the chalk flew. There's only one double-digit seed in the Sweet 16, and it's a John Calipari-led team. Might be something different if it was Memphis back in the day, but they did have Derrick Rose. But
it's just crazy that it's the worst NCAA tournament ever, yet they're setting viewership records. It's funny how that works.
It's funny how, people then don't necessarily know this, but ratings generally indicate this. People viewers don't like the upsets.
Thank you.
I think the 2 least viewed championships were the ones Butler was in. If you look at the ratings, especially opening weekend versus Sweet 16 weekend and Sweet 16 year to year, the years you have your Florida Gulf Coast, you have your your multiple double-digit seeds that move on, people don't like that. The viewership goes down when that happens, despite what Stephen A. wants to tell you and that, there's no Cinderella, no one is watching. No, the exact opposite.
Exactly.
This is the time of year where, pardon the word, but it can be kind of a curse word, but casuals tend to tune in for basketball. And ain't nobody really been watching basketball for the 6-7 months.
True.
But now everyone
good matchups.
Yes, and so for those that tune in, especially if your bracket's busted, UConn's taking on Arizona. Okay, yeah, I know that. As opposed to Arkansas, they got it. Arkansas and Washington. Okay. I guess I'll watch that. But no. If you know the teams, they're going to tune in.
Yeah, and to me, it's the most competitive Sweet 16 field where, we were talking about yesterday, you can have a true discussion how each one of these 16 teams can find themselves in the Final Four, potentially playing for a national championship, and it not be far-fetched. So think about how we were watching the SEC all season long of, we could probably see 4 Final Four. We could see an all SEC Final Four, and how crazy we were thinking that's not going to happen. Well, you're looking at the brackets now, it's 1,000% a possibility.
Yeah, it is. And if the trend continues of favorites winning in the Sweet 16, if all the favorites win this upcoming Thursday and Friday, you're going to have an Elite 8 that will consist of the 8 best teams in the KenPom rankings right now for college basketball. You will have statistically the 8 best teams in the Elite 8. And I can't think of another year that you've had that, or maybe you've had a year where you had 6 of the 8 or even 7 of the 8. But that is something that's also on the table. And I think kind of to what Saber was saying, that plays a big part because the upsets are fun at first, but then once you get and you realize, now I have to watch this team more. It's like I don't really know if I want to do that. So no, it's gonna be an awesome weekend, and I can't wait, and these 3 days here where you're just kind of putting around, don't really have anything to watch. You don't know what to do with yourself. It's almost over. Tomorrow will be a better day. One more sleep and we'll be at the Sweet 16, and you'll have Alabama tomorrow. You'll have Auburn on Friday. It's going to be great. So a lot to look forward to.
Yeah. And I think that one, I'm actually glad that Alabama's starting things off. Like, we get a chance to see Alabama early on. And
I know, and if they lose, I don't have to watch any of the other games. It's great. I'm just done.
That too. But also, I think, like, when you look at a lot of people are like, man, you got to watch out for this BYU team. It could be, a tricky game for Alabama. I think that for the two games that we've seen Alabama play, one, I can't emphasize enough that the bigs are getting active. And think of the style in which Nate Oates has kind of preached, since he's been at Alabama. It's kind of live and die with the three or get to the cup. But now the big men are truly starting to get active at the right time, where you don't have to live and die from the 3-point shot. It's like I said yesterday, we're getting Lob City, Alabama all of a sudden. When Big Cliff is going down to the block and it's like, oh, Mark Sears isn't going for the teardrop. He's going for the alley-oop. And I think that when you get kind of the effort from everybody in that sense, it makes the game, I'm not going to say easier, but it makes it a little bit more, it flows a lot better for Alabama, where you're not going into those lulls of, they hadn't made a shot in over, 2 and some change. They're just starting to pile on. And I think you really saw that against St. Mary's, where I think it was early on in that game where they started to extend the lead, and you really felt like, oh, this Alabama team is legitimately about to, I thought they were going to blow them out there for a little bit, which, I mean, still they won by 12, 13 points, but it never really felt like St. Mary's was threatening them at any point during the ball game.
No, I mean, even when it got down to 5 at one point in the second half, something like that, a 5 or 6 point lead. But you just knew with the style of play that they had, where that was coming off of, I think they hit 2 threes in a row after they had gone like 0 for 10 to start the game. And so you're like, okay, if they're going to start hitting all those shots, maybe this is interesting, but that's just not kind of St. Mary's style. And so I think about that game going into BYU is, you were playing a St. Mary's team that their entire goal was to make you uncomfortable and not let you play your style of game. And while, we've seen Alabama score more points a number of times this year than they did against St. Mary's, they were, for the most part, able to play their style of basketball against a team that absolutely did not want them to, and did everything they could to stop that. But Alabama, with their talent and how fast they are and how athletic they are, they were able to continue to do that throughout the course of the game. And now you're going up against a BYU team where you're going to be in your comfort zone, right? And that doesn't mean that, this can't be a game. I mean, hell, we remember, the Missouri game, you went and scored 98 points and lost because you gave up 110 or 112, whatever it was on the road to Missouri. And so that's certainly possible with BYU because they have one of the better offenses in the country as well. But, I saw a breakdown yesterday where somebody was comparing BYU to, I guess, the SEC team that they most closely resemble. And I thought this was a really good comparison, but it was Kentucky and the style that they play. And statistically, they are very similar offensively. BYU actually a little better than Kentucky on the offensive side. However, they are, I don't know if I would say significantly, but they are notably worse defensively than Kentucky was. And so when you look at that kind of matchup and you look at how Alabama fared against Kentucky, the times that they played this year, you feel pretty good, I think, about where you are going into this matchup. But, I think that's the big thing for Alabama. You get a couple days rest like all these teams do, but you get a little bit of rest, and now you get to go back to your comfort zone. You get to play the style of play that you want to play, because that's how BYU is going to want to play as well. And so I think that doesn't mean that Alabama can't lose. They certainly can. But I feel pretty optimistic about the matchup because Alabama's the better team. They have more talent. They're more athletic. It's just a matter of if their shots aren't falling and BYU's are, then it's going to be a long day and Alabama's going to go home. But, if Alabama's able to shoot the ball consistently, I don't think they're going to have too many problems. But the big X factor for them, much like we talked about yesterday with Andy Burcham and Janai Broome, is, can you get Mark Sears back in a rhythm? Because that's a guy that's shooting, I think, about 18% from 3-point range over his last 6 games, which is atrocious. Last year at this time, he was shooting 42%. So if you can get that back to a 35% kind of thing from 3-point range for Mark Sears, I think you're going to see the best version of this Alabama team. And this is when you want it, right? Going up against BYU, and then potentially, if you're able to get past them, either Duke or Arizona, 2 very, very good offensive teams as well. So it's it's going to be a challenge, but it's right there. It's right there for Alabama. And if you're Auburn, it's very similar, right? You've had all of the pieces around you do the things that they need to do. It's just, can Janai Broome now become the player that he was in the regular season? And if that happens for Auburn and Mark Sears has his resurgence for Alabama, who's to say that we don't get to see these two teams both in the Final Four?
Yeah, and to your point about Auburn, Seth Greenberg was on ESPN a little bit earlier, and he says that the question was like which number one seed is on upset alert in the Sweet 16, and he picked Auburn. And even when Andy Burcham was talking yesterday, he was talking about the 2 7-footers Michigan has. And he brought up a point that pretty much every time Janai got the broom, Janai Broom got the ball there, got the broom inside of the 3-point line, they sent a double team. Now, it's a little different when you've got, a 7-footer and a guard coming at you. But 2 7-footers, if you're one of the guys on the wing, you got to be ready to hit your shot because you may have a lot of space in that situation. Or if you're down there on the block, if you're Dylan Cardwell and you've already seen that the other big is going to, go over and try to double Janai, you may have some looks at the rim that, hey man, you just got to put it up there and try to get your 2. But I don't know. I think Michigan had Texas A&M been in this spot, I would feel a little bit more uncomfortable for Auburn just because Buzz just has his, Buzz has his number. But I don't know if Michigan just has enough because I think Auburn on both sides, they have the ability they have a Houston-like ability on defense where they can just smother you at times. And they just make it so difficult for you to find a shot. And when you have the shot, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm finally open. And you start to rush it a little bit. And then offensively, they play with so much efficiency that you really don't know who has the hot hand. And it doesn't really matter who has it. It's just the ball seems to find its way to the right spot at the right time. And I think, what Tahad Pettiford did in the last game is Creighton coming off the bench and something we've seen all season long, but to take it to even another notch with 23 points in the game last game, that's another piece to the Auburn puzzle of, okay, yeah, we may have some inconsistencies with Janai right now early on, but everybody else is starting to elevate their game. And we've seen it from different players. And I think that's what helps Auburn in the long run is because of the fact that they aren't necessarily dependent of their star player. The offense still goes through him, but it doesn't feel like they have the pressure of, man, we got to get forward the ball. We got to get him. It's no, hey, Janai's like, hey, if I ain't feeling it, if I ain't got it, there you go, CBM, go get you some. Hey, Denver Jones, it's your time. And I think that's what kind of helps Auburn in the long run. And it feels as though through 2 games and even going back watching a little bit more of the Creighton game, it's okay. If you see it early, it's almost if you sense it early, like, man, he's just not feeling it. That's when Tahad Pettiford's like, no, I got it. Like, we can go ISO ball. We can do whatever we want to do. I can come down a pin down screen. I'm there. I'm open. And I think what Auburn has as far as their depth, which they had last season, but it's more of a scoring depth as opposed to last year where I think a lot of guys defensively were good, but they were kind of limited offensively, where this year it's, Miles Keller can give you 20. CBM can give you 20. Tahad can come off the bench and give you 20. Denver Jones gives you 15. It's just the offensive consistency outside of Janai is really helping Auburn in this race towards the Final Four.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. And, you mentioned all those guys and you didn't even get to a guy like Chaney Johnson, who we saw was kind of the big factor when Janai Broom went out with the ankle injury earlier in the year. And while he hasn't given you the offensive output that you were getting earlier in the year recently, that's a guy that we've seen at times, when he's hot, he can go out there. That's a guy that can go, we saw him go, 10 for 10 from the floor in a game earlier this year, right? So that's another guy that can just add on to all of that. And, and going back, to kind of what you were saying, what Andy was talking about with this yesterday, it's, this can be a game where, if we're looking at the box score at the end of the game and Janai Broom has 8 points again, like he did against Creighton, that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, right? Because are you getting double-digit rebounds? Are you getting, 6, 7, 8 assists to go in there as well, where you're kind of acting like a decoy almost, and you're allowing to play from the inside out, and you're just distributing the ball to the guys on the perimeter. And as long as they're knocking down their shots for Auburn, you're going to be just fine. So yeah, it's a very interesting matchup. I certainly think it's different than, again, just talking about Alabama and BYU play very similar styles of play. And I think for Michigan, it's a little bit trickier. And, if you want to go there, it maybe is the kind of matchup that you've seen Auburn struggle with at times this year when it comes to playing more physical teams, on top of the fact that they're on a little bit of a heater right now after running through their conference tournament and now here the first weekend of the NCAA. So it's it's going to be a great matchup on both sides, but Again, if you're, I'm very curious, how many times do we get, do you get a Janai Broom and a Danny Wolf in a one-on-one type situation? Because Janai Broom got the better of that last year. And I know it was a Yale team that ultimately won that game, and it's a Yale team that doesn't have nearly as much talent as Michigan does right now. But again, that's a matchup that we saw, and Janai Broom had 24 points against them last year. And so maybe that's, a sign of things to come for this weekend for Auburn. But it, I think going in, if you're an Alabama fan, if you're an Auburn fan, you have to feel really good about the spot that your team is in, knowing we haven't seen the best version of either of these teams in the NCAA tournament yet. Granted, I could also see where that makes you a little nervous, but it does leave you room to get through this matchup. And I think both teams can get through this round, even if they don't have maybe the A game from everybody. And then when you get to the Elite Eight and you get to the weekend matchup, that's when it's really going to be time to crank things up. But it should be a lot of fun. And I think that we're going to have multiple SEC teams that we're talking about on Monday having made it to the Final Four.
Absolutely. 205-834-9450. A question for you guys and also the listeners. Who's the most dangerous team in the Sweet 16 right now? If it is Auburn, do you rock with it? If it is your team in Alabama, or is it another team he's like, hey, I'm kind of glad that we're not playing them. I also just want to see how they look in the Sweet 16. We'll keep that discussion going on the other side. 205-834-9450. Keep it locked right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
All right, let's see if you've learned, Damien.
Creed.
Okay.
Good job.
I've never seen Damian so scared to answer a question.
I know, it's funny.
Like it was 50-50, man. It was 50, but it's his Creed.
Yes.
Let's go.
And the funny part is, was that Monday? Like I tricked him a little bit.
Oh, did you?
Because I played Temple of the Dog, which has the lead singer of Pearl Jam, but in a different setting. I even prefaced this. I was like, all of your training has led to this moment. If you can distinguish the two voices, you should be able to get this. And of course, he missed it.
Oh, that's all right. You're trying. You
I'm
listen
trying.
to Florida Georgia Line. We can't.
And what's wrong with that?
So many things. Just so many.
You can't be a hater all your life, man.
I can in that regard.
Yeah. You ain't alone in that either.
I can in that regard. You know, we had somebody text in yesterday the show and say that the Florida Georgia Line was awesome. So
Because they are.
Alone. Look, you can listen to whatever makes you happy.
They were.
True.
They don't exist no more.
That's
Right.
true. They don't.
But the two artists, individually, not as popular, but together, they make great music.
I just feel bad for Damian because a lot of the things that he's cared about in his life have just disappeared.
Yep. Will Levis.
My school.
Your college,
Mm.
your favorite band. What's next?
Your relationship with Don Don, apparently.
I mean, all that's next is the Tennessee Titans are going to have to move and change their name, and
We're going back to Houston. We're going to take it.
It'll be-
Going back to Houston, take it over.
That's right.
Get the Texans up out of there, which we split with them last year with Will Levis as quarterback. 205-834-9450.
and that was good enough to get you the first pick in the
You
draft.
better believe it. You better believe it. And we lost to Jacksonville with Mac Jones as your starting quarterback.
Okay, so what does that say about?
That's
All right.
Well, he's a championship-winning quarterback. There's no
In
shame
college.
in that.
in college.
Yeah.
Doesn't always translate to the NFL.
No, it doesn't. But he was really good that one year.
I'll tell
at
you what
Alabama.
does translate to the NFL. Inconsistently playing the quarterback position. That'll get you your draft stock lowered, and also teams will trade back for you. Will Levis. But we solidified the number one overall pick, and it is the Cam Ward show from this point forward. No other name will be spoken in the number one overall pick other than Cam Ward.
Okay.
Cameron Ward.
The same organization that let Mike Vrabel walk, but okay. All right.
We didn't let him walk.
Mm.
We forced him out.
Okay. All right. Look what happened.
We didn't.
Significantly
Okay,
worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, we disrespected him. That's what we did.
Just like the Eagles and
slapped
letting
him in the face.
Yeah.
You know who we let walk? Derrick Henry.
No, he ran.
All season too.
Yeah, man, you ain't lying. All he did was, run for 1,600 in a purple and gold uniform.
Y'all probably could have had Saquon too.
Nah. We were just the AFC version of the Giants. We would just wasted his time. But he wouldn't have had to witness, his team paying $8 billion for a quarterback they were going to give up, 18 months later.
So is the closest y'all getting to the Super Bowl when y'all host in a couple of years?
No. We're getting Cam Ward, one.
Okay.
The AFC South is only Houston is the only team we have to worry about. Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson are in a quarterback battle. Come on, man. Like we at least gonna split with Indianapolis. And then Jacksonville. It's Jacksonville.
See, he's talking about how bad they are, and he's like, well, we're at least going to split with them,
Oh,
right?
okay,
Like,
right.
We're gonna have a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward. I'm not expecting him to go out here and put Jaden Daniels' numbers up, but if we put some pieces around him, yeah, we're gonna be all right.
With what?
You're dogging
Draft
the
stock
other
with
teams
what?
in the division, and we can split with. Should be able to sweep them
Okay.
if you're confident.
I'm realistic. I'm realistic.
And yet you still expect to go to the Super Bowl.
I
But
said
you're
we'll be
realistic.
close. Like we'll be closer than we are. We will be closer
Right. You're
to
literally,
the Super Bowl.
it's in your backyard. Correct.
We'll
Yes.
be closer to the Super Bowl in the coming years as opposed to this past season.
Tom Brady's not there for y'all to beat up in the playoffs anymore, Damian.
Hey, we sent him to Tampa Bay. We sent him to Tampa Bay.
Okay.
It worked out well for him.
Yeah.
We were
Y'all are the football version of Good Luck Chuck.
we were a half away. We were a half away from not even starting this Patrick Mahomes mess. We started this. I'm pulling a Drake.
Again.
Look at all this.
Right.
We started this. We had a 17-point lead. And then Patrick Mahomes hits
Right.
that little crazy scramble, and the dynasty started at that moment. We blew it. Had
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota been playing instead of Ryan Tannehill, I'm pretty sure we've been playing.
It would
for
have been a
Super
bigger
Bowl.
lead that y'all would have blown. But yeah, everyone seems to find success after they leave your team.
They
can't be great there.
You ain't lying.
Y'all get good luck chucked, and then, okay.
I will never forgive our organization for how we absolutely disrespected A.J. Brown. Like, him and Derrick Henry are the two of, like, I don't care if we're in rebuilding mode. We give a blank check to them and tell them, like, please stick with us. Like, whatever we can. Because for Derrick Henry, my argument for Derrick Henry is, for the first 2 years that he was in the NFL, he had to split time with DeMarco Murray, and DeMarco was nothing that he was in Dallas, and we wasted 2 years that we could have started building it up.
You did.
And then when we gave it to him for the 6-year stretch of it's running through you, we let him go. Like, we just say, you know what? Sorry. And then we go into this mode of, okay, if we're going to tear it down, we're just going to tear it down completely. We trade back, draft Will Levis. The year before, we draft Treylon Burks and send A.J. Brown to his best friend with Jalen Hurts. They go to a doggone Super Bowl, and it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And then think about this: we had the number 2 overall total defense last year. Total defense, we were number 2 behind the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you know what we were in offensive efficiency last year?
32nd.
30.
And all of that was good enough to get you the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
And so,
which, if I'm not forgetting, goes to the worst team in the NFL.
How are you closer to the Super Bowl now?
Because defense wins championships.
No, it didn't.
Obviously, it gets you number 1 overall picks is what I'm hearing.
It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal.
I know.
Because
I find it funny.
We were in dog fights with good teams. We could have beat Minnesota. We had them. We were up 14-13 going into halftime. And then we just completely blew it. I'm just telling you, man, like we this close.
Oh, okay. Right.
So I switched it. We this close.
Yes.
We're a quarterback away from being a receiver away.
Y'all gonna be Squidward looking out at SpongeBob and that when the Super Bowl rolls around.
Yep, that's exactly right. Well, Michael chimes in on the text line. 205-834-9450. He says, Damian's life is starting to sound like a country song. He has no alma mater, no band. I hope he doesn't have a dog. You don't have a dog, do you?
No.
Then you're good. Someone else says, just quit while you're behind, Damian.
That's pretty much what Titans did all season long. We got Calvin Ridley a bonus, though, because he went over 1,000 yards. And again, we got Calvin Ridley from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and all he does is lose twice to his old team. We're like, well, what did I come up here for? We had DeAndre Hopkins. Send him to Kansas City.
So y'all lost to the generational quarterback twice last year?
No, Mac Jones started the second game.
Oh, okay.
Damian, you are not doing a good job of convincing us that you're closer to the Super Bowl.
No, I'm trying to convince myself. I really.
Yeah, I know.
But it starts with drafting Cam Ward.
Oh, okay.
It starts with drafting Cam Ward.
So what happens if they don't take him?
I will be disgusted. Like
You don't want Travis Hunter?
I mean, cool, but no. I
mean, Abdul Carter's right there.
I mean, he's great.
Yeah.
He's great.
Mm-hmm.
But no, our issues are on the offensive side of the football. Our issues are it starts at the quarterback position. And if we don't have a franchise guy, we're already.
Are you going to buy a Cam Ward jersey?
More than likely.
Okay.
More than likely.
Yeah, you will.
That's why I said more than likely.
Well, he's
like 84%.
No, he's acting like it's not 100%.
He's 1 for 1. I mean, he's been burned before.
That's what I'm saying. It happens, man.
You already went on the NFL shop and made a custom jersey, and you put Ward number 1 on. You already did it. It's fine.
Not yet. But I'm telling you, like we are. It's just tough. It's tough.
You're as close to a championship as St. John's is right now.
The Cancun.
Yeah.
It's a good point, Saber. Yeah.
At the crib.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. It's just because the decline, it wasn't like a steady one. It wasn't like, we're getting a little bit. It went from being in the AFC Championship to nothing in a span of 2 seasons to absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it sounds awful. Wouldn't know.
It sucks, bro.
Yeah, it does.
And then me, big Alabama guy, hadn't seen Alabama, in the college football playoff in a couple seasons. I hadn't seen them in a championship. Just like, brother can't win for losing.
You're ready to bolt. Oh, okay.
Oh, here we go. We have this. This will make you feel better. Somebody just texted in Crimson Convict. He has an idea. He says the Titans will trade up and draft, or Tennessee should trade up again and draft Jalen Milroe. So you could take Travis Hunter, and then you could trade back up into the first round and get Jalen Milroe.
I mean, it's right there.
Get that 5th-year guaranteed on the contract because you're going to want that. Definitely going to want that.
Trade back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, that'd be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
To get Jalen Milroe.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And to be in a quarterback
But you
room.
gotta trade back in the top 20 because you can't let Pittsburgh take him from you. So you gotta play this.
So are they going to send
smart.
us like TJ Watt as well for that number?
No. No, you're not doing a deal with Pittsburgh. No.
Why y'all doing me like this, man?
Oh, because it's fun. Yeah, Crimson. We know it was
Doing
a joke.
what?
We're just
It's just. And the crazy thing is, I remember when Will Levis got drafted, like, and everybody was like, "Oh, he's going to the Titans." I was like, "One, we're not going to draft him in the first round. Like, let's just go ahead and."
and you didn't.
that.
And you didn't.
Yeah.
It was the fact that we traded back in the second pick of day 2.
Mm-hmm.
We get him like, nah, dog, no, this was not part of the plan. Like, this was not part of the plan. But you
It ended
know,
up
And
being
then
the
you
plan.
know what? I got to buy his jersey. After all the greatness that was there.
because I was looking
See,
at.
that's a
I was
good
looking
point.
at the pieces. I was looking at the pieces around him. I was like, we are setting him up for success. We're adding D Hop. We're putting, we still had Derrick Henry. We ended up getting Tajay Spears. It's like, okay, he's going to have the talent around him in a division that is gettable because we weren't completely sold on CJ Stroud just yet. It was still there. And then he goes out and actually plays quarterback. And everything that I saw at Kentucky, I see at the professional level.
Will Levis had more passing yards and touchdowns than Trevor Lawrence last year.
It's because Trevor Lawrence got hurt.
Yes,
That's the only reason. That's the only reason.
it is. But statistically, it's true.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah, he had more passing yards than Dak Prescott. He makes a lot of money too.
Yeah, he broke his whole leg.
Yeah, I mean, there is a theme. He was better than all the quarterbacks that got hurt last year. That was, unfortunately, kind of the theme
tough,
we were
man.
getting at there.
That's why we should have got Jared Goff. We should have got Jared Goff.
I'm sure there's a lot of teams that would like to have Jared Goff right now.
Not the Rams.
No, they didn't need him.
No, they didn't need him.
Got rid of him. Sent him to Siberia to die.
Yeah, well, they got what they wanted out of it, and it worked out for him too.
1 year. Super Bowl does kind of. I'm just saying.
So the last time that your boys lost to an AFC North team by 3 points in the playoffs, they proceeded to not make the playoffs for 8 straight years.
So you're telling me the Cincinnati Bengals have broken the Tennessee Titans?
Maybe, yeah.
So you've got 6 years left before you can.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a window.
A little bit more, yeah.
There's a window of opportunity.
So you'll be in your mid-30s the next time the Titans are in the playoffs, and maybe by then, I'm not trying to set your life out for you, but maybe by then you have a kid, and you can watch a Titans playoff game with your child. That would be cool, right? That'd be a good bonding moment.
Year 7, 8 of Will Levis, he should be developed by now. No, we're probably gonna get Jimmy Garoppolo. That's who we should have got.
No, if that's the case, your son will probably be a Texans fan. Or like, Dad, can you watch CJ Stroud? Why would I want to cheer for the Titans? I want a winner.
No, we're not.
Not in this household. No,
Not at all. Not at all.
Mm.
I don't think Jimmy
Texas
Garoppolo likes I think his type of woman is not in Nashville necessarily. Las Vegas was a much better fit for his preferences and
Fair.
personal
And think about
matters.
it, man. I honestly was wearing the cape when Matthew Stafford was having his little issues with the Rams. I was like,
How quickly the tables turn
Yep.
from somebody you despise to,
Yeah.
I don't despise him. I just think he's overrated. But he would
so
be
you wanted
better.
an overrated guy to be your
He was
quarterback.
him being overrated is still better than 100% Mason Rudolph and Will Levis and even Malik Willis. And all Malik Willis did was go to Green Bay and come down to Tennessee and beat us on Sunday
And
too.
won.
I was about to say he looked pretty good.
Again, had to lead Tennessee to be great.
It's
Common-
bad.
All the
Common
Titans do
theme
is
here.
Dog,
hold down greatness.
It's brutal. It's brutal. Yeah. But I think
What were you talking
there's
about
a
before
theme.
this?
There's a theme though. When Tennessee Titans, there's a certain theme of a quarterback that we have when we have success. Steve McNair.
Is that your only one?
Warren Moon.
Oh,
Oh,
Well,
good quarterback.
Last I checked, Warren Moon didn't play for the Titans.
Well, Oilers. But he was a
Yeah,
Titan.
that's Oilers. It's a different team.
But his jersey is retired as a Titan.
No, it's retired as an Oiler and
no,
got transferred
that's
over.
Us.
They
That's
don't
us.
count.
So over the last 40
And Marcus
years,
Mariota.
Damian has two names, and one of them
Marcus
played
Mariota.
for a different. No, okay.
Marcus Mariota.
Okay, that counts.
All I'm saying is the two names, they have a common theme.
You just gave me three.
A common theme.
Not really. Not amongst those three.
There's a common theme.
Oh, okay. So why again did you buy a Will Levis jersey? If that's the case, I
thought he was going to be the.
I thought the president struck down that program.
So you would have been a fan if the Titans had gone out and signed Jameis Winston then?
1,000%.
Okay. Wait, then why are you mad that who was a texter? A Crimson Convict said that they're going to trade back for
That's a good point.
Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think he's.
But he's what? He's right there. There's something in common.
He
has the same thing that's in
he
common.
ain't a can't miss guy like Steve McNair and Warren Moon.
And Mariota was a can't miss.
He was number 2 overall, dog.
Oh,
Heisman Trophy winner.
okay, and
Heisman Trophy winner.
and did what?
Got us to the playoffs.
He can't, miss.
Hey, y'all won 14 games that 1 year with Kerry Collins. You remember that?
Yeah. So what was he having in common?
That's CJ2K in the backfield, though. Our identity was a little different on the offensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually very similar to when Derrick Henry was back there in the offense.
So you're saying the draft should have been in February, not in April, with what's in common? Okay, all right.
The common theme I'm sensing here is good players.
Yes.
No, because Mariota was in there.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Sorry.
Hey, again, coming out of college, number 2 overall pick. The only person ahead of him won the Heisman the year before. And they're head-to-head. The last time I saw Marcus Mariota play Jameis Winston, and also he beat him in the first game of the season, too. 2 rookie quarterbacks. Marcus Mariota beat him both times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Someone text in and reminds us.
Also, Zach Wilson was the number 2 overall pick.
But was he a Heisman Trophy winner?
That is true.
No, he was the number 2 overall pick?
Was he a Heisman Trophy winner?
Was Warren Moon?
No.
Okay, well, I mean, you're talking about great. You just said he was number 2 and great and came in, and look what happened.
Heisman Trophy
winner.
Johnny Manziel had a good career.
No, he didn't.
He won a Heisman Trophy, though.
Robert Griffin III.
Did he play for a national championship?
Good one. Yeah, Robert Griffin III. He won a Heisman. He was
Heisman Trophy and number 2 overall pick.
Number 2 pick.
He tore his ACL. It was never the same. I'm just saying, Marcus Mariota doesn't I don't understand the disrespect other than he got hurt. Even as a Titans fan, it's hard for me to sit there and look and be like, dang, dog. It's no. Marcus Mariota's he was warranted at the number 2 overall pick because between him and Jameis Winston.
So was Carson Wentz. So was Mitchell Trubisky.
He was a national championship winner at North Dakota State.
They're all worthy.
And Carson Wentz led him to the playoffs, but Nick Foles won the Super Bowl.
Jamarcus Russell.
He was number 1 right there.
He was number 1.
Yeah, with a bullet.
But he didn't watch film. He didn't watch tape.
No.
He didn't watch tape. That was just off God-given ability, being that big. He had a cannon. All I'm saying is the Titans are there. And it changes. It changes on April 24th when we draft Cam Ward number 1 overall. You're going to see it.
Oh, I can't wait for him to go to the Packers or something. His second team comes all pro, begin his Hall of Fame career, and they have to retire his number of the Titans because technically he started there. He's going to pull a Brett Favre.
Someone thinks this is all because you really just miss Zach Mettenberger deep down.
Oh, my God. That's what I
think we got to the root of the issue, Josh. Thank you. We got to the root of the issue here.
We'll try to get this thing back on the rails and return here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 7:43 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order, John Saber here with you. The text line is getting extremely active. 205-834-9450.
They're trying to cheer you up.
Are they? Because Alan texted in and says Kellen Mond can save the Titans. That's not cheering me up. He is that no.
Worth a flyer.
Conrad, you weren't here when I asked him. I said, I know, like, timeline-wise, it may not have fully worked out, but if the Tennessee Titans had a quarterback room of Matthew Stafford, Kellen Mond, and Eli Manning, Damian, which jersey would you buy?
Eli Manning.
Why?
He's a 2-time Super Bowl winner. That's what they tell me.
Okay.
We got him at his peak right before Daniel Jones.
What do you mean they? You're the one that said
Eli Manning was an all-world quarterback.
It's your own words.
The media, man. I'll never forget. I will never forget that. Never.
Well,
Never.
you won't be able to because
God,
got it in there.
it's
ready to
brutal.
go.
It's brutal. Bobby texts in and says, "Don't do Mettenberger like that. He had talent. He just had bad knees."
He was really good at holding a clipboard in Tennessee.
You better believe it.
He was, clipboard Jesus, right? When he had the all the hair grown out and everything.
Clipboard Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just going back and looking at some of the names of the starting quarterbacks that have worn a Titans uniform. Matt Hasselbeck. I forgot that. Well, I remembered. But
Yeah,
we
he
weren't
took
that
the
good.
Seahawks to Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
He did. Not the Titans.
Of course not.
No.
Not the Titans. Ryan Fitzpatrick of one of the 52 teams that he played for in his career.
Graduated from Harvard. That's
Yeah.
impressive.
Educated, but not a great not a Super Bowl winning
No,
quarterback.
but really smart.
Absolutely. Jake Locker. He was supposed to be the savior after Steve McNair and after Vince Young and after Kerry Collins.
Yeah, I don't have any positive takeaways from that one. That was
He
bad.
didn't fit the mold. Jake Locker didn't fit the mold. Like Kerry Collins said, apparently.
How about this? Charlie Whitehurst. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was right. And then you know who we drafted after we saw him play quarterback? Marcus Mariota.
And what did that do?
And then after you saw him play quarterback, you
we went, forget about this one. We got him after his stint in Jacksonville. Blaine Gabbert was once our starting quarterback at one point in time. In the last game of the regular season back in 2018, Josh Dobbs was our quarterback at one point in time.
Well, that would make you because you're a Vols fan.
He was not a Heupel disciple. He was there with the Butch Jones era. Great for him.
So he's a champion of life. Okay, you had a champion on your team.
Yeah.
He's out here doing progressive commercials now. He's got a side gig.
Get your bread, my brother.
Also smart.
Another smart one.
Also
Yeah.
rocket scientist.
Absolutely.
Very smart.
Absolutely. Get your bread, my brother. And then Malik Willis and Ryan Tannehill, Will Levinson, all that. So we've been a quarterback. I'm sound like an Auburn fan. We've been a quarterback away for about a decade or so. That's kind of where we're at. And that all changes again when we draft Cam Ward number 1 overall.
Because the history of quarterbacks that you've had, you just rattled off, show that this is the one.
This is the one.
Oh, okay.
This is
All
it.
right.
This is it. And we also had some coaching changes along the way, too. A bunch of those. It's brutal. It's brutal. Why do I put myself through this misery?
I don't know. I don't know, but I respect you for at least sticking with that team because you don't do that in college. So the fact that you do that with the Titans.
Well, I guess that's what you're supposed to do in college. You're supposed to bounce around, and then when you get in the professional, no, you buckle down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The transfer portal's always open. It's always open in college. That's why I was made for this era. And also, again, my school closed down, so I'm a free agent. I had the due diligence of doing that.
You've taken a lot of official visits in the last
You better believe it.
couple
It's
of years
recruiting.
then.
It's recruiting, dog. It's recruiting. Wait till they up the NIL budget up here. It's gonna be over with. Everybody but Texas A&M. Everybody in SEC, I can rock with. Texas A&M.
Oh, this is nice. Bobby, quick reminder. The Titans are one of the 9 teams that could have drafted Patrick Mahomes but didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And with that, we'll hit the break. We'll keep talking some ball on the other side of McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 7:51 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Older, John Saber here with you. Guys enjoying a little bit of spring break. Hope they're having a lot more fun than I am as a Tennessee Titans fan. I'll tell you that. This has been brutal. And the names that people are just throwing out to potentially be a quarterback as a Tennessee Titan, which, I mean, if you look at the past 15 years, it's kind of what we've been doing, just throwing a random quarterback in there.
So why don't y'all sign Jameis?
I don't know.
Or Russ?
Russ doesn't seem like a fit. Not with Will Levis.
Still protecting Will Levis here. Okay.
I wouldn't say protecting him. It's just I look at the room. He already had Mason Rudolph in there, and I think the vibes were a little different. It's just two different quarterbacks, two different lifestyles.
No. Will Levis loves having to go through a secretary to talk to his teammates. That's
they ain't gonna fly.
That's what I've heard.
They ain't gonna fly.
Why don't you bring back Duck Dodges? Because that way him and Russ could, hey, you've got celebrity girlfriends. Y'all can,
That's true.
Yeah.
Both in the music industry. They can talk about that.
I got an off-air discussion to have with y'all about Doug Hodges. I ran into him back when we wrote that in school.
I grew up with him, yeah.
Yeah, he got the dog. He got the dog.
He was really good at Sanford.
On and off. Okay. He got that dog.
He was very good at Sanford. And I will acknowledge that when we were growing up and he talked about going to the NFL, we all kind of looked at him like, okay, I mean, but really, and to his credit, he accomplished that.
That air raid, man.
It was very impressive. Well, we do want to remind you that for flu, pollen, and allergy season, you want to keep your home cleaner with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those contributing to allergy and virus. It's proven more effective than standard and HEPA room filters. Contact a Trane certified dealer for the Clean Effects Air Cleaner today.
Just going to the Jocks text line again. I guess it's the Tennessee quarterback power hour here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Somebody texts in and says, I'm going to laugh when the Titans trade their pick and sign Carson Wentz.
Well, as we were telling you in the break, he has a championship pedigree. Philadelphia, Kansas City. Now Tennessee. Maybe.
I think we're good there. And also, for future reference, the correct spelling of my name is Damian. I have seen it 17 different times in this text line. And
I've been enjoying that personally.
And this is how Crimson Convict spelled it. Dameon.
Well, you just sound it out.
Yeah, that's how it. Yeah.
Well, it's more like Damian, but
sure. Damian.
It's okay. People never know how to spell my name either.
Are you serious?
Well, my last name.
Okay, well, yeah, that's understandable. I thought you were talking about Conrad. Like, come on.
No, that one's not hard.
Pretty simple. Somebody texted in and says, once I found out Florida Georgia Line had the same managers as Nickelback, a lot more things started to make sense.
No, they didn't. Oh, that's better than any of the Titan stuff that y'all thrown out there today. I'm going to hold on to that one.
Well, this is how you remind me that they had the same one. Good to know.
That's wild. That's wild. JP texts in and says, would you take Tom Brady right now over what you have?
Oh.
Is he in shape?
God, yeah. Oh, did you see that video?
His cheeks are. We know that.
Yeah, you saw the video of him a couple weeks ago. He was out there. He was letting it rip, man. He looked good. He was in shape. He looked like he's been keeping up. I think but behind the offensive line that we have, we might not get a full 17 out of him. I'm erring on the side of caution. Got to protect. He's up in age. Not the most mobile, not the most fleet of foot. Even Will Levis is fleet of foot. He has he has the most rushing yards in NFL history for somebody over the age of 40.
That's great. I think Derrick Henry in a couple of years will beat that. He could run till he's 40. He's like LeBron James, dog. It ain't gonna slow down anytime soon. You that big? He's part defensive lineman. Like he's a defensive lineman playing running back. LeBron James is the second best player of all time.
Again, that LeBron James? Okay.
That was, again, out of context. See what the media does nowadays? Like, see what the media does.
I mean, you're in the media. You could
twist your words.
That sounds like all the context we needed for that.
No. There was a whole.
I thought we were on the same side of that debate, but I guess not anymore.
No, dog. That's the GOAT. That's my GOAT. Steven texts in and says, Damien, you could come be a Kentucky football fan.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
No.
Go back to Will Levis's roots.
No.
Enjoy all the mayonnaise you want.
No.
But you said you'd rock with every SEC team.
I do. After Will Levis left.
Kentucky's
After Will Levis left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're more of a Brock Vandegrift guy. I see. You're a man with taste. I understand.
If you if you could hide the numbers of their jerseys, they would look like the same exact quarterback. Even Devin Leary, the only thing he's got was the tattoos. All look the same. Terrible.
Sad as it is to say, Will Levis definitely was better than the.
Yeah.
And the bar wasn't even that high.
I was about to say, and that is.
Yeah, the bar wasn't even that high.
That is saying the bare minimum.
Oh, boy. But they do have Kendrick Law now.
Mm-hmm.
So they got some Alabama flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the only positive I can really take away from that.
Heard a lot about him off the field last year. Then we got on the field and.
He's a good blocker.
He was.
Efficient.
He was.
It fits the Kentucky style.
But you don't. You don't want it.
Can't do it.
Okay.
Can't do it. Somebody said Titans going to trade for Tyler Buckner.
Whew.
Hour number 2 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order, John Saber here with you. The first hour, I thought we were going to talk about the Sweet 16, and then it just went completely off the rails.
You hijacked it.
We did talk
My
about
apologies.
the Sweet 16.
I thought we were going to be therapeutic, but it ended up being a lot worse. Like, this is the start of my villain arc at this point, because now everybody's just like, oh, yeah, this guy could come save the Titans. I'm getting names like Carson Wentz. We passed up on Patrick Mahomes. Got to remind us that we're one of those 9 teams. Somebody takes it in that we should sign Peyton Thorne.
Well, and that's kind of true, but as I pointed out to you, you're not going to have to spend draft capital on him. So it's kind of a You can just get him as an undrafted free agent. And
That brother about to be a Houston Roughneck.
you could make him Mr. Irrelevant like Brock Purdy. That worked out.
2 Super Bowls.
Do we have a Deebo Samuel on our roster? Do we have a George Kittle on our roster? Do we have a Brandon Ayuk?
You have
But
Calvin
just-
Ridley. And Westbrook Akine? Is he still there?
He's gone.
Oh, he's gone.
And you think Cam Ward can help elevate all that, but not having none of that on the roster.
Listen,
Okay.
if you're drafted that high, you've got to. You got to be able to overcome it. That's why you're drafted that high. If Eli Manning can do it, so can Cam.
Are you going
so
to be
can
more
Cam
mad
Ward.
when the Titans take Jalen Milroe or Peyton Thorne?
Oh, Peyton Thorne by a mile.
Okay.
What if Cam Ward pulled an Eli Manning and said, I'm not going to play for the Tennessee Titans?
You know what? Even as a Titans fan, I would understand it. I would.
He should.
I would. Like that man in the airplane. I want to shake your hand, brother. Just come here. Like you know what? I respect it.
There's a new one, and Saber, I think, would be on board with this one. He would probably try to help you out, pull some strings for you. You could trade for Derek Carr.
And do what with him?
Yeah, we'll take Will Levis off your hands straight
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Straight up.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you're going to want to take on that salary, but
That's why.
You would rather have.
yeah, exactly.
You'd rather have
You get rid of him for free.
Will
Correct,
Levis
yeah.
than Derek Carr.
Yes. Because that can free up cap room and we can go out and get something else.
Like
Yo-
draft Cam Ward.
You don't believe in Spencer Rattler?
He very well could be a good quarterback.
But I think y'all have at least better. Y'all have better weapons around
No,
a quarterback.
I agree.
Yeah, than us. Because Alvin Kamara, no matter how you sliced up, I mean, he's kind of checked out, but he's still a
And
dude.
the other Kellen M knows how to at least develop quarterbacks. So
That's true.
True.
Olave's good.
Yeah, Derek Carr served him a bunch of hospital balls.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Will Levis won't even. He won't have a chance to go to the hospital because he'll overthrow him. So, like, I guess in the long sense, you're looking out for his health.
How often do you rewatch the highlights of Will Levis's first start where he had 4 touchdowns and no interceptions?
I don't. You got to think about the opponent. Think about the opponent. It was the Atlanta Falcons when they were already kind of milling it in. They had
it
Desmond
was
Ritter.
a game out from making the playoffs.
They were in the Super Bowl a few years ago.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan with the MVP.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are realistically, when you are being benched for Mason Rudolph,
Mm-hmm.
there's no coming back from that.
No,
Like,
just probably not.
it wasn't even injury. It was just, no, you're just not good. Like Auburn, Tennessee Titans last season was literally having the same exact problems Auburn was having. Like there just wasn't a quarterback in the room that you could believe in. The only thing is that, hell, even Auburn probably had weapons.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't utilize them. But like it was a clone of we can't even believe in our starter because our backup is even worse. So what can you do? You find a way to run the ball 70 times. And then Tajay Spears is like, I can't keep taking these licks. And y'all throw the ball a little bit. Tony Pollard, he's like, man, I'll probably get a few more touches if I go from Dallas to Tennessee. He goes over 1,000 for what? The number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, he had a solid year.
He did. Like I said, we're a quarterback away. I don't think any of these quarterbacks are necessarily going to change that fortune, but you know who is?
Aaron Rodgers. He's still available. Especially with Russell Wilson going to New York. I mean, he's got...
We already got a quarterback that's out here eating mayonnaise and putting mayonnaise in his coffee. We don't need Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers can do that in the dark so no one sees it.
You know how toxic of a locker room we would have?
It'd be interesting.
He wouldn't even be the first. He wouldn't be the most famous Rodgers from. Like, they played in Nashville, Tennessee.
Who'd be more famous than him?
The other one. Yeah, yeah, exactly. They'd be like, "Oh, you're not." Think about that discussion at the family table. If they had family table. Go ahead. Say
Well,
what
they
you
do. Just Aaron doesn't go.
I was about to say
Right.
I was about to say everyone's there except for Aaron. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some positive things. How about it? Hugh Freeze hit the podium yesterday as Auburn opened up spring practice.
Quarterbacks. Let's talk about quarterbacks.
Absolutely. And Auburn looks now in the year 2025. They've washed away 2023 and 2024 with Peyton Thorne at their quarterback position. And now you enter the transfer portal era again with a guy in Jackson Arnold who had success at Oklahoma, but no matter how you slice it up, it just didn't work. It didn't work in Oklahoma. He hits the transfer portal, of course, highly recruited coming out of high school. But when you put it all together, along with some of the injuries that he had to deal with from the receiver position, it just never really panned out. Well, now in the 2025 edition of the Auburn Tigers, you bring in Jackson Arnold. You also recruit well and get Deuce Knight. And from what we've got a chance to see and hear from, Coach and everybody yesterday, that quarterback room, yeah, it's going to be different, but they don't have to be elite for this team to show even those small signs of improvement in 2025.
I would agree with that. No, I don't think that you need. I don't think you need elite quarterback. You'll certainly take it, and that kind of resets what the expectations for Auburn would be. But yeah, no, I mean it's kind of similar to, again, and I don't like comparing everything to Auburn and Alabama because they're their own things. But, we talked about this yesterday with Alabama and the Ty Simpson discussion of you're looking to get more consistent. If you get the superstar out of it, that's great, but you need to be more consistent. And that, that holds true for Auburn because, right, there were times last year where you looked and you went, granted, the quality of competition sometimes dictated it, but you looked and went, wow, okay, you can win with this version of Peyton Thorne. Then you have games, even like the Oklahoma game last year, where you're like, okay, we can win with Peyton Thorne, and then ultimately one bad decision cost you the game in a pick six there in that situation. But now with a guy like Jackson Arnold, who we saw have turnover issues at times, especially I think we all remember that Tennessee game earlier on. I know you do, Damian.
Of course.
And that wasn't the prettiest sight, but getting a clean slate, you're now working with an offensive-minded coaching staff. I know we can make our Peyton Thorne jokes, but going back and some of the quarterbacks that Hugh Freeze has worked with in the past, he's been able to elevate them to another level. You have good weapons, like you were talking about. So yeah, you if you can get Jackson Arnold to be, in my opinion, if he is a B-level quarterback for you at Auburn this year, I think that sets up to where, I think you're a team that can go and win 8 games this year. And if you get more from Jackson Arnold than that, then that's when we start having a different conversation about some of the expectations for Auburn and potentially competing for, being in the conversation for a playoff spot or things like that. I know a lot of people, don't want to jump that far already, but I think with where you are with Jackson Arnold, you already have upgraded at the position. The question is just going to be how big of an upgrade are you ultimately getting?
And I think when you go back and when Peyton Thorne's, the way that he ran the offense, his legs were valuable in times. But I think with Jackson Arnold, you can truly design quarterback runs to help loosen everything up for him. And I think even going back to the Alabama game where Oklahoma, they already depleted at receivers. You kind of just like, hey, we'll go empty. Let's run some quarterback RPO, just single quarterback RPO, make a decision, stick with it, and go. And I think that's where you saw him start to, thrive a little bit because he didn't have to, sit back in the pocket, look and wait for, receivers that aren't necessarily polished or developed all the way to to get into their routes. They were simple. And I think for Auburn, with the running back by committee, yes, you're losing Jarquez Hunter, but you still have a bunch of serviceable running backs in your room and a receiving core that one should be another year developed, should be better. And there's some freak athletes in there. Like Jackson Arnold has probably never played with a receiver like Cam Coleman, and just like how he's built, how he understands the offense, and he's getting them after a freshman year where he's just trying to get his lumps a little bit. And then you add Eric Singleton from the transfer portal, who's a lightning in a bottle. I think that the offense, it has, and I hate saying this, but like it can't be any worse, which I know it could be. But all of the pieces that you have around you, and the biggest thing, you have to protect them up front. The offensive line has to make sure they stand up. Like Peyton Thorne was sacked 26 times last year. And in a win against Kentucky, he was sacked 5 times. So if you fine-tune some things offensively and your offensive line just makes, again, kind of like the quarterback, you don't have to be just absolute road graders, but just a little bit better than what you were last year. It's hard not to feel at least somewhat optimistic of what Auburn can look like offensively as far as identity is concerned.
Yeah, and I think the main thing too is right now, at least right now at the beginning of spring ball, the foundation of what you have offensively is better than what it was last year. And I think that's the big thing, because no, you don't have a player of Jarquez Hunter's caliber in that running back room, in my opinion, but what you have in depth with Alston and Cobb and Darrell Henderson coming over in the transfer portal, you are perfectly fine with that, right? If you don't have a guy that's going to go out there and get you 1,000 yards, but you have 3 guys that are each going to get you, 500, 600, 700 yards, you're sitting pretty there at that spot. We talked about a lot on Morning Jocks, and we can, dive into it more here this hour, but at the wide receiver position, there's a very strong argument that you were making that Auburn has, on paper at least, the best wide receiver room in terms of those first 4 guys that you're going to see getting the majority of receptions. They probably have the best group top to bottom in the entire SEC right now on paper. The offensive line is going to be the big question mark because, let's not lie, the offensive line at Auburn has left something to be desired over the last couple of years, but you've upgraded at quarterback. So you feel like all of it, what you have at the base level, is better than what you had last year. It is now about what is the ceiling for the offense. I think that's the more interesting question, is how good can this offense potentially be? Because I think we have a good feeling that it's going to be better than it was last year. And like you said, could it be worse? Yes, it could always technically be worse, but it's hard to imagine that actually happening. So now it's just, with Jackson Arnold, for example, are you getting a Jackson Arnold that is a guy that came out of high school, had all of these accolades, and is going to be a good college quarterback? Or is this a guy that can reach that potential that he had coming out of high school, and this is a guy that can be a top-tier quarterback in the SEC, like we were talking about yesterday, kind of going through who we had at the top of the list? And Jackson Arnold wasn't somebody that came up in that conversation right now, but I think we all agree that he has the talent to potentially be in that conversation. And maybe it's not even this year. Maybe it's a situation where, he shows something enough this year for Auburn to have confidence in him moving forward, and this is the guy for next year as well. And then you really see him kind of blossom into the quarterback we thought he would be. But at the ground level, just going into the season, if you're an Auburn fan, I'm not saying that you need to be going, oh, well, we're going to make the playoff, we're going to win 10-plus games this year. Maybe you will, but you have to have more confidence and be more optimistic about where this offense is now compared to where it left off at the end of last season.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, too. It's hard to imagine this offense taking a step back. And the one thing, and Greg has talked about it a lot here on the show, it's sometimes playing quarterback is just so different in between the years that it's almost like Jackson Arnold. We could be looking at season's end of both Hugh Freeze and Auburn, and also Jackson. Like, it's almost like they needed each other. Of, all right, Auburn fans, you've had to suffer through Peyton Thorne, and as much hope as you really wanted to put behind him, he kept giving you reasons why you can't fully buy in. Whereas Jackson Arnold is, Oklahoma was like, man, we haven't seen, they've been spoiled to a point because we've seen so much good to great quarterback play that we can't have the 5-star that we're expecting to have the inconsistency that he has. And maybe just a change of scenery for him is, okay, I don't have the pressure. Now he feels it, but it's more of, your head coach is probably feeling it a little bit more than you are, except that, like, it has to work. But I think that with the quarterback room that you have, there's a reason why nobody, to your point you talked about on Morning Jocks this morning, there's a reason why that whole room is out from last season. Like, nobody came back because Hugh Freeze looked at it and was like, okay, if Peyton can't get it done, I've watched every single one of these quarterbacks and none of them are ready.
And you saw that when Hank Brown got a start. Nothing against him, but he wasn't ready for that.
And looking at Peyton Thorne's numbers, just last season with 199 for 317, 2,713 yards, 21 touchdowns, 9 picks. 4 of those picks came in one game. So it's
more for him. It was always about, a lot of times, when the turnovers happen, right? Because 2 years ago, you had multiple times where you're throwing interceptions deep on your own side of the field that resulted in pick sixes. We talked about the Oklahoma game last year. It was more so, especially last year, about the timing of a lot of these turnovers. It wasn't, Jameis Winston numbers throwing 30 interceptions or anything like that. It's just they came at the worst possible time and led to losses.
Josh from Huntsville, he texted in. He says, we went from 10 wins being a pretty good season with Gus to 7 wins being a pretty good season. Thanks, Brian Harsin.
Yeah.
I think we're over the Brian Harsin thing. Like that's
I
a
will
good joke.
continue to make fun of him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was funny.
But like, I'll put it like this: he better be glad Peyton Thorne wasn't the quarterback.
You just don't think you can be blaming.
Nah.
We are far enough out from the Brian Harsin era to where you can't put this on.
Nah.
At least he can win in LSU.
That's a good point.
True.
Took Alabama to 4 overtimes?
True. Well, it took a gravedigger
with
to knock
TJ
off
Finley.
Hugh Freeze the first time.
Yeah, but that was in regulation. If we're splitting hairs here. Just saying. But what did Hugh Freeze have to say about the quarterbacks? What did Hugh Freeze have to say about the wide receivers? What did he say about maybe the spring format for Auburn and what that spring game type situation might look like on the Plains? We'll let you hear from Hugh Freeze. He talked to the media for the first time yesterday. We will hear from the Auburn head coach when we return here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Welcome back into McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian, Conrad, John here with you. I guess yesterday we went heavy Bammer. We went heavy Bammer. So now are we about to do Auburn radio, John? Are we going?
I mean,
Auburn?
you kind of did it yesterday, so.
Dang. Oh boy.
I mean, we had Bertram, and then we talked about Auburn spring starting yesterday. So,
Dang.
you can do it back-to-back days if you want to.
That's a lot of barn.
Yeah, and of course, those 2 days you didn't wear your Auburn shirt, but yeah.
But, we're Stallions. Speaking of the Stallions, they kick off this Sunday. Up in GC, take on the Defenders.
So then in a week, you'll be back in the shirtless section.
You better believe it.
You're down with your boy.
That's right.
No.
Giddy up.
Yeah, giddy up. 1,000%.
Did you see Boomer yesterday?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He had an Undertaker look yesterday.
He had the Kid Rock thing going.
That's what it was.
But the trench coat,
on a hot spring day on top of that.
I respected it, though.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. It was fun. Yeah, the Stallions do kick off on Sunday. UFL. Looking forward for Pete. Pretty confident.
Pretty confident. And quickly, tonight you do have, tomorrow you have Alabama in the Sweet 16. Friday you have Auburn in the Sweet 16. But tonight you have UAB in the NIT. That game's going to tip at 8 p.m. And they're going to take on UC Irvine. So they're out on the West Coast. That's why you're going to have the late tip time. But you'll be able to hear that on Jocks 2.
100.5 coverage starts at 7:30. And if UAB keeps winning, get used to these late times because they make it to the NIT Final Four. They will be the second game, which I think is April 1st. I want to say 1st or 2nd, something like that, the middle part of next week. And they'll tip at 8-ish. They'll be the second game. First one tips at 6 because, that can start at 6. The second one will be 8-ish. So, yeah, just get used to all these late times if you're UAB.
Yeah, and if you're an Auburn and UAB fan, then, man, you've got 8 o'clock tonight. You got, 8:30 on Friday night? Yeah. And then, like Saber said, potentially another late tip next week. So
absolutely.
Take a nap if you can.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. So continuing on with the Auburn spring, get a chance to hear from head coach Hugh Freeze and just discussing his quarterback room and what he's seen so far.
Very, very optimistic. He's got a calm demeanor, a confidence. He understands the ball, high football IQ, arm strength is good. It's a reason he was Gatorade Player of the Year coming out of high school, and I think needed a start to regain some confidence, and I think he's doing that in a fast pace. Decision-making has been on point. We'll watch today's film. I don't know about it, but in the previous 3 days, again, you didn't have pads on and stuff, but there's been very, very few decisions that were the wrong ones, and I think he's throwing a very accurate ball. Really impressed with his pocket presence when the traffic is around him where his eyes are. They stay downfield. He uses his legs when he needs to. Really excited and impressed, truthfully, both with him and Deuce. Deuce's maturity is way farther along than what I even knew. And he's hungry to learn and always asking questions and always wanting to talk about how do I improve this and that, and is a extremely hard worker that you have to run off the field from trying to throw too much. They're getting a lot of throws because there's only 2 of them right now, and you got to monitor that. But I'm really pleased with both of those guys right now.
And that's good. Again, it's early on in the spring, but when you hear your coach talking about decision-making is already there. And again, the thing for Jackson Arnold is he's played a lot of football. He's played a good amount of football at high level with, of course, filling in for the bowl game, then jumping right into the SEC schedule of things. I think for Jackson Arnold, too, it's the decision-making is always going to be the one thing that kind of can separate him from what you had seen from Peyton Thorne for the past 2 seasons at Auburn. And I think for Jackson Arnold, it's the developmental thing. Like, he's still young and raw, but also you can't look at him and not deny the talent. Like, it's definitely there. He has it in there. It's just, can you make it more consistent? And then another thing on the flip side of that with Deuce Knight, that's extremely high praise for a freshman coming in. For again, Hugh Freeze has coached a bunch of quarterbacks in his heyday, and to hear somebody, as a freshman with all the expectations, 5 stars and things like that, say like, hey, he's even more polished and more mature than I thought. That's extremely high praise coming in early on in the spring.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, again, it's early on, right? So you take all this stuff with a grain of salt. because there's a long ways to go before the actual season starts. But these are the things that you want to hear at the beginning of spring practice, right? And for Jackson Arnold, I think the big thing, we've talked about it a lot, and hearing Hugh Freeze acknowledge it was, it's getting that confidence back, because there's no doubt about the talent that he possesses. But last year having to go out there and, essentially make it work with, a patchwork group of receivers coming into the SEC for the first time, having to go up against a difficult schedule, that can do a lot of damage to a young guy, especially, we have to remember a lot of these kids. I mean, when you're the Gatorade Player of the Year, all that you've heard probably your entire life is how incredible you are and how great you are, and you're the next best thing. And then when you hit a wall and you're no longer that guy, how do you work back towards being that guy once again? And I think that's a big part of what Jackson Arnold's having to go through. But no, I mean, early impressions, that's exactly what you want to hear. And on the Deuce Knight side of things, yeah, it's a young guy that I don't think the expectation ever should have been for him to have to play this year. But to hear about his maturity and his hunger for learning, that's exactly what you want from a guy that you're looking at as maybe he's your starting quarterback next year or 2 years down the line. If you're able to keep him on the Plains, you're already hearing the things that you want to hear about a young guy coming in and making impressions. And I mean, you brought this up earlier this morning, but from the, what we've heard from Hugh Freeze there, what we've heard from DeBoer and Ryan Grubb in Tuscaloosa, you're hearing really good things about these young guys in a situation where, maybe it's not this year, but maybe starting next year, you're going to get at least 2 years of Alabama and Auburn duking it out in the Iron Bowl with two of the better quarterbacks in the SEC with Deuce Knight and Keelan Russell. So that's certainly exciting stuff to hear. And yeah, it's early on. You're watching these, these practice videos that come out. They're not doing anything crazy, but, you can take away, oh, yeah, they look good throwing the football. That's exactly what you want. These are all positive things. It doesn't mean it's not a sign of things to come, but, it is still early on. But, it's a heck of a lot better than hearing, oh, yeah, the ball's hitting the ground a lot early on in practice here. We're still working on that chemistry between Jackson Arnold and these receivers. They're just not on the same page. You could be hearing those things, and you're not, at least through day one. So, any positive news is worth taking, but there's a long ways to go still.
Yeah, and somebody's got to be on the opposite end of those passes that Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight throw. Here's Hugh Freeze on his wide receiver position so far in spring.
They better make plays. If that room doesn't have success, we won't have success. But it is one of the more talented rooms I've ever been associated with. And, somebody asked me the other day how I would rank that room versus DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Van Jefferson, Evan Ingram. I think it's a bit early for me to put all of that on them, but it rivals it. It's close, I think. Even like Malcolm and Perry, who just a second year in the same system with the same terminology, doing the same things, you see them now catching on. There were still times last year, that, Peyton's ready for Malcolm or Perry to do this, and it may not get exactly done. And now you start seeing them executing at a better level. So we are very much dependent upon that room having success.
And we talked about it on Morning Jocks, and if you didn't get a chance to hear it, I do think, again, it's early on, but right now, if you had to look at every receiver room in the SEC, I think Auburn right now has the best room in the conference. And it's very key that Hugh Freeze said what he said, because he's like, hey, as far as talent, I hate to put it on them, but they are one of the more talented rooms I've got a chance to coach. I've got a chance to see. Because even last season, one, they had to play because, just because of depth. And again, the talent that they have, one, it shows a sign of recruiting that you're at least trying to, turn the corner. But also that's where you see those year-to-year progressions. And it was very good to hear Hugh Freeze talk about, like Perry Thompson, those guys, like, hey, maybe early on when they were freshmen, some things that Peyton Thorne, again, he had played a bunch of football at that time. He's needing his guys to see. And I look over and you see, Cam Coleman came in as one of the guys like, hey, it's him, Ryan Williams, two of the best, receiving freshmen that you'll ever see. And then Jeremiah Smith definitely showed us in the national landscape of things. But I think just right here in our state, when you look at what Auburn is returning and the talent that they have, and then you add Eric Singleton from the transfer portal at Georgia Tech, that it's hard not to deny that the talent is there. It's just they have to. They can only do so much as far as, again, the offensive line has to make sure that they keep the quarterback up and the quarterback's decision makers. But I think hearing that the receiver room has developed, they're starting to understand, they're getting that natural progression of, we got in the same system. Now I know what to expect. I know what the quarterback's looking for when we call certain things. I think the more reps that you get, and I'm telling you this as a receiver, like the more reps that you get and the better that you retain the information, one, it's almost, when you go back to when Alabama had Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, and all those guys, and they're doing rock, paper, scissors of basically like who's going to be out there. It's because they have the full grasp of the offense. Mm-hmm. That's how you know, like, hey, man, I'm going to get Z this play. I got you. I'm the Z this drive and things like that. And also the versatility that they have with their size and with their talent that all Coach Freeze has to do is essentially call a play. Doesn't matter what receivers in what position, you feel confident like, hey, they're going to get it and get it done right. And it's good to know that these young guys are really starting to process and taking that next level jump in the receiver room.
Yeah, and I think, especially for, Singleton coming over, it kind of makes up for the loss of Keandre Lambert-Smith, him going and trying his luck at the next level. And you expect a lot out of him. Cam Coleman, obviously, it was kind of interesting how him and Ryan Williams kind of had opposite seasons almost, right? In the sense that Ryan Williams hit the scene immediately and absolutely tore it up for the first half of Alabama's season. And then he kind of slowed down a little bit as the offense faltered and the passing game wasn't the same for Alabama. And then you look at Cam Coleman, who, maybe didn't have the production that Auburn fans were expecting. And then you get the last 3 games of the year, you go 8 for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns against ULM, 7 for 128 and 2 touchdowns against A&M, 7 for 78 yards and a touchdown against Alabama. If that's the Cam Coleman that you're going to get for an entire season this year, and you pair that up with a guy like Singleton, who had almost 800 yards last year in an offense that, with Haynes King there at Georgia Tech, they weren't slinging that thing around a whole lot, and he was still able to get that kind of production. You throw in a Malcolm Simmons, who we know his explosiveness, but he needed just to grasp the offense a little more. Same thing with Perry Thompson. He's a big body, but needed to grasp the offense a little better. And now that you're getting that, the potential, the ceiling for this wide receiver room for Auburn, I think is absolutely sky high. And I do think it's an interesting debate. If anybody wants to weigh in, 205-834-9450, do you look at, on paper right now, Auburn, do they have the best wide receiver room in the SEC? Would you say LSU, maybe? They have some talented guys there. We know Alabama has some talented guys. Texas having to reload a little bit, but we know some of the talent they have there as well. We'd love to hear from you on the text line. Who do you think has the best SEC or wide receiver room in the SEC? Because, when you initially said it, it was, okay, yeah, I can get on board with that. And then the more you think about it, and we kind of talked through it in one of the breaks of just going down all the teams in the SEC. And I think right now, again, early on, but on paper, it would be hard not to say that Auburn has the toppers, at least in the top 2, in terms of 1 through 4, what you're going to be able to roll out at wide receiver. That's a position group that I don't think Auburn should have any concerns about heading into the season. That should be the position group you are probably the most confident in on that entire team, at least right now.
Absolutely. 205-834-9450. We actually had a tweet come in from Jamie Bailey, and it's a great question. That's something that we can also discuss on the other side as well. One, of course, who do you think has the best receiver room on paper right now in the SEC? He asked, what team in the SEC is the biggest unknown? I'll let you marinate on that during the break, and we'll discuss it on the other side. Keep it locked right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Who is this?
This is Incubus.
Incubus?
Yes.
It's got a nice little vibe. What's the name of this song?
Talk Show on Mute. It's actually funny because I believe on this album, I don't think I played the song yet. There's a song called Megalomaniac that basically calls out your boy Scott Stapp from Creed.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they had rock beef back in the day?
Well, it's kind of one-sided.
Ah, I got you.
I mean, not that, well, I guess Scott was too higher up there to concern themselves with the opinions of others.
Oh.
But they were just like, nah, man. I mean, they literally say, you're not Jesus, you're no Elvis in the song. So, yeah.
Okay.
It's like Kendrick and Drake from back in the 90s.
I got you.
Well, it's more like, I'd say Alabama, Tennessee. Like, it was kind of a one-sided round of rivalry. Yeah. The other one didn't know. Yeah.
Well, welcome back into McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian, Conrad, and John here with you, having some fun. Just discussing some spring ball with Auburn opening spring ball. Of course, we know what we've seen from Alabama over the past couple weeks. We were discussing the receiver room. I made the claim that, on paper right now, I think Auburn has the best team, the best roster as far as the receiver position goes in the SEC. And we've gotten some reaction here on the Jocks text line, 205-834-9450. Somebody said, or Lewis said that that's not so bold of a prediction, but he says due to portal and injuries, the Russell and Knight Iron Bowl never happens.
Oh, okay. I get
They're
what
saying
you're
like
saying.
they won't. Yeah.
Well, I will just say this. I think if that were to be the case, I don't think that's the worst thing for Auburn or Alabama, because that would mean that maybe Jackson Arnold, maybe Austin Mack, somebody else stepped up and they became the dude. And so while, yes, right now we're all so excited to watch them play, if we ultimately don't get that kind of a matchup, I would assume it's because both teams ended up in a very good spot at quarterback.
Bobby texts in and says, I'm biased, but I'm still taking LSU with the transfers they brought in, like Barry and Brown, mixed with what LSU is bringing back. I think the experience in that room gives LSU the edge. Hey, and that's perfectly fine, because I completely forgot that Barry and Brown was going to LSU. And I just think for him, one, the speed, 1,000% there. You just got to get him the ball and he'll do everything else. But I think we saw a little bit of it with the entire Kentucky receiver room there for the past couple seasons due to some inconsistency at quarterback. They had some bad drops as well. Like they were up there with Georgia as far as just drops on the season. And I mean, if you polish some of those things up, yeah, I can definitely see how LSU could be that.
Plus it's just, it's LSU.
Exactly. They're going to have one. And like you said this morning, like one of them's probably going to be an elite NFL receiver as well if you hadn't, looked at the league now.
Oh, yeah. One of these guys will end up being a top 5 receiver in the NFL in 3 years. It's almost guaranteed at this point.
CJ texts in and says, what do you think about Georgia's receiver room? They got Noah Thomas from A&M. Also got Zachariah Branch from USC.
I will just say this. Noah Thomas is solid. Like he's been a good player at A&M. Zachariah Branch was the one player when he went in the portal that I was kind of confused that it just didn't feel like there was as much buzz about him. That dude is, if we're just talking some of the best athletes in college football, he is very near the top of that list. Like that is a dude, if you get him the ball consistently, I'll be completely honest. I was really hoping that Alabama was going to make a run at him because he is a dude.
He's explosive.
And I mean, we saw, I know last year wasn't the same for him, but his freshman year at USC, he was a dog.
He absolutely was. And I think, for Georgia's receiver room, you want to talk about it couldn't
clean
get any
slate.
worse.
Yeah, just clean slate.
Man, get all of them out of there. I mean, Dom Lovett, even when he hit the portal from Missouri to Georgia, you're thinking, okay, well, they're starting to build it up. They've gotten some depth. You want to talk about somebody missing Ladd McConkey on that roster? Like, man, Georgia's receiver room went absolutely bonkers with the drops. I mean, of course, Dylan Bell, everybody remembers that one in the college football playoff where, I mean,
he's back.
If you're Gunnar Stockton, it's like, I can't put any.
No,
I put it right on you, big dog. That was a tutty.
I was about to say him and Arian Smith was
he had some bad ones.
He was the worst offender, but no, I mean, I think Georgia has a solid group because you got London Humphreys coming back as well. And so I think that those 4 guys are again solid, but I don't think that's touching Auburn right now personally.
Yeah. Somebody texted and says, I believe receiver room is as good as the quarterback. That's fair.
It's a big part of it.
That's fair. I'm trying to think of some examples where it's kind of unfair. It's kind of unfair to Peyton Thorne. But like Keandre Lambert-Smith coming into Auburn wasn't looked at as a quote unquote number one guy, but he got there. But I still never thought it was because of Peyton Thorne. I think it was more of the system that was made for him. And he just kind of showed you why he was why he hit the transfer portal. Because again, he kind of not necessarily say wasted his time at Penn State, but Penn State isn't known for just throwing the ball all over the yard.
Yeah, some people might, also make a comparison to Calvin Ridley last year on the Titans.
205-834-9450. Drake
just overcoming bad quarterback.
Drake texts in and says, I don't know. Florida brings the best wide receiver class in the country. Dallas Winston, Noshawn Montgomery, Vernal Brown, watch out. And also Elijah Badger last year, who made some big plays for him. And Eugene Wilson. Eugene Wilson is a guy.
He's good.
He's one of those dogs. But I think, especially with DJ Lagway being as good as potentially he could be, it should be nice. Tennessee, going back to that conversation about the receivers being as good as the quarterback.
The Titans or the Vols?
The Tennessee Volunteers.
Oh, okay.
Tennessee Volunteers. Like when you go back and what Joe Milton was throwing to, at that point, a young Squirrel White, Brew McCoy ended up getting hurt, but he was always consistent. I think that room was a lot better than what the quarterback kind of gave him. I guess you could say that.
Would you say
Ramel
the same
Keaton
thing?
Was there?
Would you say, and I promise I'm not doing this as a joke, would you look at Tennessee's wide receiver room last year similarly to that? Just in the sense that, you had some dudes there with Thornton, and you still had Squirrel, you still had Brew McCoy, and
you know what?
Like, I think you could have done more with the receivers you had.
Yes. Yeah, I do agree with you there. I do agree with you a lot there. Because if Nico was as good as what people expected him to be, that whole entire room would have looked different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I honestly can say I don't think Squirrel White hits the transfer portal if Nico was a little bit better.
That's fair.
I don't think he leaves.
Yeah, and I think, in this conversation, I think you could make an argument, maybe only in the second half of last year, or particularly in the second half of last year, I think you could have said the same thing about Alabama.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you look at just overall talent, it's hard not to look at a Ryan Williams or the consistency of Jeremy Bernard and say, like, man, if their quarterback could actually kind of hit him, a little bit more, their numbers would look a lot better.
There's a lot of quarterbacks that would have scored more than 3 points against Oklahoma with those guys.
Peyton Thorne would have. And he did.
I'm not going to.
He did. He also gave him six, but
he did.
It happens, man.
He did.
It happens.
I don't want to talk about it.
But Jamie Bailey, he tweets in a great question. He says, which SEC team is the most unknown? It's a lot of them that fit in this category. But the first thing that popped in my head was Ole Miss. Because, one, you're losing a lot of experience. I don't know exactly. I think Austin Simmons' talent is there. But I look at it from the defensive side of the ball. Is Ole Miss ever going to be as good as they were this past season on the defensive side? And your offense is actually the one that let you down in a lot of those games. Like, you go back to Kentucky, Jackson Dart looked absolutely awful. But the defense was like, we are doing everything we possibly can.
Florida game.
Exactly. It's your offense ended up being your Achilles heel. And I don't know if Ole Miss is going to be as good with the talent that is returning, but also they can't. It shouldn't be that big of a drop off, but it could be warranted a big drop off because Jackson Dart isn't there anymore.
Yeah, losing Walter Nolan, Prince Yu, and Trey Amos alone on top of the other guys you lost. Those were three of maybe your three best defensive players last year, or at least three of your top defensive players, and you're losing them. And you brought some guys in. You did bring in Umami Ellen's little brother,
right?
So maybe you get similar production there. But especially Walter Nolan and losing that, he was so big for them. And I think the job. Pete Golding did an incredible job, I think, with that defense last year.
You're saying that as an Alabama fan?
Yeah, he did a great job.
Didn't think you'd ever. Didn't think we got to that point.
No, yeah, he did a wonderful job for them. But yeah, no, I think looking at Ole Miss, that would certainly be a contender there. I have another team that I would consider in that boat. So when we come back here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, I'll tell you which team I think is the most or the biggest unknown in the SEC, and we will continue to get your reaction. You're tuned in to Jocks 94.5. $8:52. Welcome back into McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell, John Saber here with you. Cole and G-Mac enjoying a little time off for spring break. They'll be back with you next Monday. But we've been talking a lot about Auburn and their spring practice getting underway. We got to hear from Hugh Freeze for the first time yesterday. And now we've kind of dove into a conversation about the best wide receiver rooms in the SEC, as well as the biggest unknowns in the SEC. So a lot of great interaction. We're going to continue to read your text. Just good conversation. It's Sweet 16 coming up, but it's nice to have a little pivot to football for a day.
Yeah, I'm with it too. And I think it's been kind of interesting because, you know, I said Ole Miss is kind of my biggest unknown, basically because the defensive side of the ball, you had a, and I don't mean it. They had a championship-like defense for the first time that Lane Kiffin's really been at Ole Miss. He didn't have to feel like he had to go out there and score 70 to beat you. And you still didn't get the job done. And now, of course, we know, or a lot of people are feeling the buzz about Austin Simmons, like he's that guy. But Are they going to go back to their old ways of, okay, we'll just have to beat you by outscoring you? Or can they really lock down defensively and kind of put up the similar numbers that they put on last year? I just think that's going to be difficult.
Yeah, no, it certainly is going to be difficult. And I think at least on the offensive side of the ball, we have faith in Lane Kiffin, and the little bit we saw of Austin Simmons looks promising, but you certainly have a lot of talent to make up for on the defensive side. So I was going a little bit of a different direction. And, the team that I look at as the biggest unknown in the sense that, I think potentially you could see them being significantly better than they were last year. But I could also see them being just as good as they were last year, if not maybe even regressing a little bit. And that's Oklahoma. And for me, I think Oklahoma is just really interesting because we spent a lot of time when we were talking about Jackson Arnold and all the situations that they went through last year, losing a lot of their wide receivers and being in the conference for the first time. But I really think what they got in John Mateer, if you couldn't tell yesterday, I'm a big believer in John Mateer and what he was able to do at Washington State this past year. He had 44 total touchdowns. He was, for my money, he was one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football last year. Now you're bringing him to Oklahoma, a guy that has experience similar to, and I don't want to compare him one-to-one to a guy like Dylan Gabriel, but I think you saw with Dylan Gabriel, you brought in a guy that already knew who he was, he knew what his strengths were, and he knew how to operate within an offense, and he had been in multiple offenses at that point. And so getting a guy like John Mateer, who maybe you don't have to coach up as much. You have to get him familiar with your offense and what you want him to do and how you want your offense ran. But he has the experience coming in. I know it's a big step up from Washington State to Oklahoma and SEC competition, but it is the most important position on the field. You should be healthier at wide receiver. You've got Deion Burks coming back, who's uber talented. I thought defensively, we know that's Venable's thing, but I thought defensively Oklahoma was fairly solid last year. It's just going to be, can a couple of the pieces around John Mateer rise up? Can the offensive line be better than it was last year? But I think Oklahoma is a team that you can look at and you go, man, all right, well, this team, they beat Alabama last year. They beat Auburn last year. Like, they had some moments in the SEC, but now with better quarterback play, you're getting healthy again. Brent Venables maybe feels a little bit more of that hot seat now. I think Oklahoma is an interesting team to watch in 2025.
Who did John Mateer sit behind in Washington State?
Cameron Ward.
Full circle moment. It's full circle moment.
How?
Because he's about to be the number 1 overall pick.
John Mateer next year?
There's a reason why John Mateer couldn't get on the field. It's because that man Cameron Ward. We'll be seeing him in Nashville, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Just give a few months.
Full circle is going to be a bunch of zeros in the win column.
We're back for hour 3 after this. Hour number 3 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian, Conrad, and John with you. We'll keep the conversation going. We're getting some feedback on which team in the SEC is the most unknown heading into the fall of 2025. Surprised nobody went Auburn. Just with Jackson Arnold coming in, you know, that defense year 2 under DJ Durkin, a lot of younger guys. Have they taken the next step? But we know why Auburn was hand-selected by our friends at Andrew Sports Medicine's Dr. Benton Emblem and Dr. Charles Pitts to serve as their team physicians. They provide the highest quality of sports medicine care in an effort to keep the Tiger student-athletes safe, healthy, and competing at the highest levels. If Andrew Sports Medicine is the choice for Auburn athletics, there's no doubt they should be your family's number one choice for sports medicine and orthopedic care. Andrew Sports Medicine has 7 locations across central Alabama, from Birmingham, Coleman, Gardendale, Hoover, Pelham, and Trussville. They offer same-day, next-day appointments for acute sports injuries. Visit andrewsportsmedicine.com today to begin your journey of achieving victory over injury.
So like Damian was saying, we were going through kind of the biggest unknown in the SEC for 2025. One of our listeners, Jamie, tweeted in the question to us. And so, Damian, you went Ole Miss, which is some of the uncertainty. Obviously, a new quarterback coming in, but a lot of turnover on the defensive side. I went Oklahoma after a less than stellar first year in the SEC, upgrading at quarterback, maybe a little bit more of that pressure on Brent Venables this year. You're going to be healthy at wide receiver, you would assume, or at least surely you're not going to be as hurt as you were last year at the wide receiver position. And so, but a bunch of you have been chiming in with some different teams. And so, Damon, we had Ken who texted in at 205-834-9450. He says he thinks Florida will be the team that makes the most improvement this upcoming year. He says their schedule's brutal, but as a Georgia fan, they scare me the most. Georgia's offensive line will be the most surprising unit in the SEC, though. So what do you think about Florida? I know we talked a little bit yesterday about Lagway and our expectations for him. And I mean, I've seen some people projecting him as the Heisman winner this year. And then I've seen other people that really weren't so impressed by what he did when he got his opportunity to start at the end of last year for the Gators. So where are you on Florida heading into 2025? Because again, remember, like Ken said, the schedule is difficult. It is essentially the exact same schedule as last year. Just, you know, some of the dates and locations are flip-flopped around a little bit.
I think for Florida, a lot of it just deals with DJ Lagway, and it's very similar to what we had the conversation with Auburn. It's all right, these guys, have they taken that next step up? And I think for DJ Lagway, he doesn't have to look over his shoulder thinking, you know, if Graham Mertz, you know, he ended up getting hurt, which is unfortunate, but he doesn't have to worry about, oh, am I the guy this week and how many packages am I going to have? Now you got the full offense, and he had it there towards the end of the last season. And again, if he doesn't go out against Georgia, that fork in the road for Billy Napier and the Florida Gators, that backstretch of the season was going to look a lot different. And I think for Florida, with the pieces that you have around you and DJ Lagway, it's hard not to feel a certain level of optimism, but nothing outrageous. Like, I'm not going to expect Florida to be competing for an SEC title, but I do think that they're not going to, quote unquote, sneak up on anybody. Like, you know, going into it that you're going to have to play your best in order to beat them. I mean, think of the mistakes that they had. They had Tennessee on the ropes there towards the end of the game. And I mean, they went out there, handled Kentucky. But when you look at their schedule, okay, that Miami team is going to look completely different now with Carson Beck under center as opposed to Cam Ward, who kind of single-handedly beat you himself. I don't think Carson Beck is at that level. But then you have you've got like the game against LSU. Now you got to go to LSU, got to go to Ole Miss. You get Tennessee at home, which up until 2 years ago, I didn't realize like Tennessee hadn't beaten them there since like 2003. Like, oh, okay, well, that's not good. But I think for Florida, it's not, you don't look at the schedule with as much fear as you did last year because you had so many question marks because a lot of it was predicated on, man, if Graham Mertz does he have to be manageable? Well, DJ Lagway can win you some games on top of what he can do with his legs and things like that. So I think for Florida, you should have a slight sense of optimism of the fact that you were going into it blind last year of, man, I just hope we can compete, to no, even if we can compete, we can win these games. And I think that you have that luxury. But again, when you look at their schedule, kind of looking at Florida's schedule now, you open up with LIU, should be handling your own business. USF right after that. You get them at home though. So
Hey, Alex Golish, man.
Right. Like, I don't think that it's going to be necessarily something that you can sleep on, but you should beat them. At least on paper, you should beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after that is when you hit the road to get to LSU. And as long as Garrett Nussmeier doesn't serve them back up to you, I mean, you knocked them off. Like, you've already beaten them. So it's like, okay, that doesn't seem like a daunting task for you to beat them.
But going to Death Valley is
I mean, well,
a little different.
Depends on the time of kickoff, too. But I think Kalen DeBoer debunked that real quick. Because they always, the night game at LSU.
Well, that's just an Alabama thing. We just take care of business.
Real tight.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you hit the road again and take on Miami. And again, Carson Beck. You're
familiar with him.
Yeah. All the things that, has happened to him down there in Miami, you can compete.
Okay, quick sidebar, just real quick. Do you think Miami will be as good as they were last year with Carson Beck?
No.
Okay, I don't either.
No. Like that, I look at that more of a toss-up than I do any of the other ones. And last year...
Who has the better quarterback in that game? Florida or Miami? Granted, that'll be a much easier question to ask the week leading into that game when you're coming off LSU and you've gone to see Lagway and Beck both a little bit.
I'm going to say Lagway because I think there's a lot more room for the upside. I think Carson Beck has already peaked. Like, I don't think Carson Beck is going to get any better than what he's already shown you the 2 seasons he's been the starting quarterback at Georgia. And I don't think he takes Miami over the top.
No,
I would give DJ Lagway more of a, he has a higher ceiling.
Yeah.
He has a higher ceiling. Then you have a bye week. Then you get Texas at home. And I mean, if Arch by week 5, week 6 has shown that he's that dude, you're kind of.
I was about to say, right now I'm chalking that one up as an L.
Right. Then you hit the road to Texas A&M, which they beat you last year, but as the season started to progress, it didn't really feel like it would have been like this. If Florida would have gotten Texas A&M in the month of November, I think that game looks a lot different. I think that game looks a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like the first sighting of Marcel Reed in a big time matchup. And when you've game planned all week long for Connor Wigman, and then they throw that wrinkle at you, it's like, oh, okay.
I was about to say you didn't really have a lot of tape on him.
Exactly.
I think A&M's very interesting for next year, though.
Yeah. You talk about unknown. That they're one of those too. Then you have Mississippi State, and again, it's
Should
a
be
lot.
A dub.
Should be. Got a bye week, and then you have the rivalry game you have the Florida Georgia line game.
Is that what they're calling it now?
Absolutely. That's absolutely what they call it.
Well, and to be fair with that game last year, I know that this is a hypothetical world that we live in. I'll be completely honest with you. If DJ Lagway didn't get hurt in that game, I think Florida was going to win that football game.
Yep.
So, and who knows? Maybe Georgia's better with Gunnar Stockton and a year for him to kind of understand and them to build the offense around him and his strengths. But again, I think that's a game that you're Florida going into that one, and you get them in the swamp this year, right? And so you're looking at that as, okay, I mean, we were this close last year with a freshman quarterback who got injured. All right, well, this year, I mean, that should be again, I'm not going to chalk that as a W right now, but you have to have confidence about yourself if you're Florida going into that.
Right, it doesn't feel like an automatic L.
No,
it doesn't feel like an automatic L.
No.
After that, you hit the road to play Kentucky. You're beating Kentucky. After that, you're on the road to take on Ole Miss. And at that point, the jury will be out on Ole Miss. But also,
we saw what happened last year.
You beat them last year. So you're probably looking at it like, oh, no matter who you got back there, we could still come up there and beat you. Then on November 22nd, you welcome in Tennessee.
That's a big fat L for Florida, right, Damian?
I don't think so. Because Tennessee hadn't beaten them down there. And it's something, especially if Florida is on the brink of a good to almost great season, it just feels like a bad spot for Tennessee, because you even saw it against Georgia last year when it's like, okay, they got the win over Alabama. They're feeling good. You've almost rectified that loss to Arkansas early on in the season, but then when you ran against Georgia, it's like, if we would have got them a little bit earlier. I think that's a tricky spot. And then you end the season with Florida State. And I mean, and now if they've knocked off Alabama to start the season, you think Florida State ain't gonna be chomping at the bit, no pun intended, to get Florida at the end of the season? Just saying, man. No DJU, Gus Malzahn as their offensive coordinator. Come on, dog.
I'm not worried about that game at all.
expect a lot of bug sweep from Florida this year.
Not worried about that game at all.
But I do think when you look at Florida, though, they are, for as pessimistic as we looked at the season going into last year, I think if you're a Florida fan, even with the schedule being somewhat similar, just flip-flopping home and away, you've got to feel a little bit more juice than you felt last year looking at your schedule. Like, I don't feel as though there are as many just bona fide, they're not going to beat them because of what you did last year.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it's going to rely on Lagway and his development. But if he is the quarterback that we think he is and that we saw him be at times last year as a freshman, yeah, I mean, I think if you're Florida, you're going into this year with the expectation that you could potentially win 9 games. And, maybe if everything goes right for you, you're in a situation where, who knows, maybe that Tennessee game late in November is a game that is eliminating somebody from the playoff conversation, or it's the game that maybe is spurring Florida into that conversation where maybe you have a 9-3 team that gets in the playoff next year, and that's kind of where you're sitting. And I know that's, again, assuming that everything kind of goes right for Florida, and that's not an easy assumption to make, but Florida, they have potential. The outlook for Florida, I think, is significantly brighter than it has been for a few years now.
Mm-hmm. And again, I don't think Billy Napier is coaching for his job this year. I don't think we're going to go.
You don't think so?
I think that for what you have returning, and I do think I have a great bit of optimism for DJ Lagway that he can be the driving force that, hey, he's going to, whatever decision that DJ Lagway makes, you're going to live and die with it. But I think he leans more on the optimistic side than I do him just falling off the face of the earth.
So if Florida regresses and they go 6-6 this year, you think they give him at least one more year?
I think so.
Billy?
I think so. Because at that point, you have to pull yourself out of the LSU mode of what's the realistic expectation?
Mm-hmm.
What's the realistic expectation? And also, again, it could be depending on who you lose to. So say like if you're
losing to teams that you shouldn't lose to versus losing to like Georgia and LSU on the road or something. Whatever.
Exactly. And another team that you hit pause with when we were discussing, that's Texas A&M, because year 2 under Mike Elko, and I in John Mack, I know that you're an Aggie, like you are. That's your squad. But I generally think that y'all struck gold with Mike Elko. If Mike Elko was anywhere else, I would look at him completely different. But the fact that he's at Texas A&M, I can't get on board.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard not to look at Texas A&M on pretty much a year-by-year basis of they have so many questionable losses of how can you continuously find yourself in these holes where LSU was literally like a couple wins away from just locking in a spot for a college football playoff. They end up losing to Texas A&M. Texas A&M then jumps into all they have to do is win these last 2 games, and they're in the SEC championship in year 1
for the first time. Yeah.
Yes, and you go to Auburn and lose. And again, no matter how you slice up, that was not a good Auburn team. They finished under 500, and it's how can you be on both sides of the pendulum at all times? Where what team is going to show up? And I think going into 2025, okay, Connor Wigman's gone. You lost some guys in the transfer portal. Your defense kept you alive in some games, and then other games they didn't show up. And then the games that they didn't show up, it's like the South Carolinas and things like that of like, come on, man. But you find a way to, beat LSU. And then looking at their schedule, and then again, you took the runner-up in the college football playoff in Notre Dame. Like, it was a fight. Like, it was a 4-quarter fight in the opening weekend of the season. And you're like, okay, this Texas A&M team could be okay. And then you end up losing, 3 straight to end the season. And you lost to USC in a bowl game. Lincoln Riley.
No, and I guess that's where with Texas A&M, at least for me, when it comes to the biggest unknown, I still feel like I know who they are, right? Until I'm proven wrong, I'm not going to trick myself into these, preseason discussions of, are they a top 10 team? Are they a top 15 team? No, they're a solid bet to go 8-4. And until they prove otherwise, that's kind of how I'm going to view Texas A&M. So, but we can come back to this conversation. Some of the biggest unknowns in the SEC for 2025 as it refers to college football. But we do have coming up Eric G., program director there at 92.1 The Ticket in Fayetteville, Arkansas, talking about those Hogs in the Sweet 16 and Coach Cal turning around what looked like a disastrous season at the start into a miraculous season now for the Razorbacks. We'll talk to Eric G next here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
.918 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate y'all hopping on with us. Damian Conrad and John holding things down for the guys as they celebrate a little spring break, a little rest and relaxation, having some fun with their families. Hopefully everybody is safe and sound. And if you are on spring break as well, hopefully everybody has an enjoyable week.
Although if you're going by what Cole said, he's not resting or relaxing.
Nah.
Disney kind of tired.
The older I've gotten, one of the things that I've realized when like Paige and I go places is you look around at, families of 4 and 5 that are doing the same thing as you. And I tip my cap to those parents because
they look exhausted.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
They look exhausted. But taking a little bit of a pivot here from the football talk as we try to make some sense of this Sweet 16, we have Eric G joining us from Fayetteville, Arkansas, a program director there in Fayetteville. And Eric, just kind of looking at Arkansas as a whole, at any point during the regular season, did you feel like Coach Cal could pull this team together and find themselves in the Sweet 16 of all places?
Well, maybe not the Sweet 16, but I did think they could work their way back into the NCAA tournament. And part of that, to be completely transparent here, guys, part of that was ignorance on my part, because I had to be fair, just to pull the curtain back, I hadn't covered college basketball seriously in about 5 years, because I came from a market that was much more NBA centric. So, like, my mindset all year long was, it was like the NBA. It's like, you've got this long runway. You just have to figure out how to put things together, and there's still time to accomplish everything you want, especially when it looked like the SEC could get 12 to 13 teams into the NCAA tournament. Even at 0-5, I kept trying to tell my listeners, guys, it's not over. It's doom and gloom as you might want to see. It's not over. They just need to start winning some games. Now, whether they can do that or not is another story, but this wasn't over. I certainly thought that they had a talent that if they ever got completely healthy and they got into the NCAA tournament, they had potential to make a run. But I'd be lying to you if I said that 0-5 start, I thought they'd be here now. But being able to get into the tournament, yeah, I thought that was certainly something that they could accomplish, and it was just a matter of them putting it together.
So is it safe to say that the fan base has essentially done a 180 on Coach Cal throughout the course of the year? Because I can only imagine, early on in the season, y'all probably had some pretty entertaining, phone calls and things like that y'all are taking on your radio show, because it looked, to be completely honest, like it might be a disaster, and like maybe Coach Cal had lost his fastball. And so now I imagine that the fan base is in a much different spot, Eric, than they were to start things off in basketball season.
Well, the interesting thing about that is it's been a honeymoon period for the entire season. The fans here have been, I guess, for lack of a better term, somewhat forgiving. They were not happy. I mean, let's face it, no one's going to be happy with an 0-5 start in the SEC. But people weren't necessarily blaming John Calipari. What they were wondering, I mean, there was nobody calling for his head. There was nobody upset. They were still defending him on social media when Kentucky fans would troll Arkansas fans. And believe me, they were trolling Arkansas fans hard for the first 2.5 weeks of the SEC season. But they were still defending him. And what they wondered was, one, does Arkansas have the depth, because Cal had only played 9 players all season long? And two, is what he doing going to work? I get the biggest criticism didn't come towards Cal. It came towards Jonas Adu, and it came towards Nelly Davis, because these were 2 high-priced transfers that you brought in, for lack of a better term, high-priced free agents. And neither one of them were panning out. Turns out neither one of them were healthy, and now that they're healthy, we see what they can do. But the fan base really never really fell out of love with him. They just more or less just wanted to see if he needed to change his philosophy. And right now, I think they've always understood why you hire John Calipari, because it's to get top level talent. But I think now they're also seeing that the reason that you hire him is because he can bring you NCAA tournament success, despite what had happened the last couple of years in Kentucky.
Here with Eric G on the Hickenbottom Hotline, the program director for 92.1 The Ticket there in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So, Eric, I look at this matchup with Texas Tech. What gives Arkansas fans confidence that they can truly pull off what would be an upset and find themselves in the Elite Eight in year one under Coach Cal?
Well, one, Arkansas is the more physical of the teams. Of the 2 teams that are going to be on the court. And you guys being down in Alabama are certainly no stranger to how physically and athletically demanding the SEC schedule has been all year this year. And I think what we've seen, not just from Arkansas, but all 7, can we say that again? 7 SEC teams that have advanced into the Sweet 16 is just going through that gauntlet week in, week out. Playing those 2 games a week has better prepared every SEC school for moments like this. And I don't know if any of these other teams who are playing SEC schools this week have faced competition that's good. I mean, the only one that has is this Kentucky-Tennessee matchup, because it's 2 SEC schools. I think where Arkansas fans are confident, where I'm confident, is one, the SEC schedule, 2, those two guys that I mentioned, Jonas Adu and Nelly Davis, are starting to play like the high-priced free agents that they are. And I believe it's going to be very hard for anybody on Tech to score inside. Arkansas's got the size advantage there. I think Jonas Adu can beat them up on the inside. Arkansas does a pretty good job of rebounding with a guy like Trevin Brazile. I imagine that he will be a vacuum on the boards, and he better be one on the defensive end if Arkansas wants any chance to win. And three, guys, their ability to get to the rim and make free throws is uncanny. This is just a mentally, physically tough team that, even though they go through droughts in every game and seem to get themselves in a hole or get leads and let teams back in, when it comes to closing time, I don't think I've ever covered a team that, at least at the college level, is that mentally tough at closing time that you have confidence that they'll figure out a way to get it done. You don't want them to get into a hole, but when they do, it's not really panic time. It's, okay, when's the light going to go on, and will they be able to score enough points when the light does come on?
So, Eric, I wanted to ask you about a guy that Arkansas was without in the game against St. John's. They were still able to get past the Red Storm, clearly, but that's Adu Thero, who averaged over 15 points a game, 6 rebounds for the Hogs this year, and at times I thought was the best player on the floor for Arkansas at points in the season. And so getting him back, I know Coach Cal said he's going to be a little limited against Texas Tech, but I didn't know if you could tell us anything else about maybe how long we could expect to see him on the floor and just how big of an impact getting a guy like that back will be for Arkansas taking on Texas Tech.
Well, that's the multi-million-dollar question, and probably the biggest thing that, I mean, you talk about the minutes. I would imagine it again. I keep thinking like it's the NBA, so forgive me here. I keep thinking a guy like this should be on a minutes restriction because it's a knee that he hurt, and what I want, and I've said this, I wouldn't expect him. I mean, 15 minutes I would think you would max out at, and you're probably playing him in 5-minute stretches because what he hurt was a knee. And unlike Boogie Flan, he hadn't been able to practice with the team, or at least I don't think he's been able to practice with the team. So I can't imagine that he's in great game shape. I don't think he hadn't obviously let himself go, but I think it's going to be, you're going to have to pay close attention to how winded he gets going up and down the floor. I think if he can just give you some quality minutes, you're in a good spot because you're right. I mean, he's probably the most athletic guy on this team. The guy can handle, he can rebound, he can certainly score. And if you can just, even if he gives you defensive effort, because the guy can play defense well too, if he just gives you effort on the defensive end and is able to affect the game somehow, then it's worth having him out there. I think more than anything, he gives this team an emotional lift. Because this is a very emotional basketball team here. So I think they can ride that a little bit.
Okay, well, I had a quick follow-up for you there because I did want to ask about Boogie as well. And I think that was big for Arkansas getting him back. But so would you say, is Boogie Fland, is he 100% now, or is he still working back to getting to 100% for Arkansas right now in the tournament?
He's not 100%. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, if he,
that's what we've been saying about Janai Broom all year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if he, that honestly, guys, is one of the most impressive performances, or the last 2 games he's been in have been 2 of the most impressive performances I've seen, because I didn't, again, things you just didn't know. It's like, oh, he's been practicing with the team. He's been rehabbing. How's that risk going to feel? And he turns out he's playing great. He's playing fabulous. No, I think Boogie is the type of guy, given the opportunity. And this is what's been really interesting about this team, because without Boogie, they've been a more cohesive unit. You didn't know how seamless he was going to fit into the rotation when he got put in, and it looked like he never left, and it looked like he understood more of the team concept by the way he was passing the ball around and moving without the ball than he was at the beginning of the year. The thing I love about having Boogie back is if you need anyone on this team to take over a game, he's the one that can do it. Because without him, they really haven't had a guy that can just take over and put the team on their shoulders. It's been a combination of guys having to make plays down the stretch in order to win them games. Boogie's the type of guy where if they're down by 10 and nobody else is hitting, you can look at him and say, all right, we're putting it in your hands and we're letting you take us there. And I don't think this team would mind. And I think if he's not 100%, I think he's healthy enough to do that if need be.
All right, before I get you out of here, Eric, program director there for 92.1 The Ticket in Fayetteville, Arkansas, I do have a football question. So we were talking about the most unknown, the most unknowns in the SEC. And I just want to know, again, it's early on in the spring. What are your realistic expectations for the Arkansas Razorbacks on the football side of things? Just early on.
I believe this could be an 8-4 team. I've had an opportunity to go out and watch spring practice, and some things I already like about this team, and I'd say strong like. I haven't fallen in love with them yet. But two things I really like. One, I think they've actually improved on the offensive line, which is hard to imagine considering the fact that they lost 3 of their starting offensive linemen to the transfer portal. But I think the guys that they've brought in, and I'm sorry, I'm spacing on a name here, but the offensive lineman that they brought in from Georgia Tech is going to be good. Shat McElroy, who they brought in from Oregon, the offensive lineman they brought in to play left tackle from Georgia Tech is going to be good. The offensive lineman they brought in from Oregon, Shat McElroy, who stands about 6'8" and has a wingspan that I think matches LeBron James, he's eventually going to be a starter. You're going to move a Marion Harris to guard. You've got Fernando Carmona, who's an immensely talented lineman that played tackle last year, moving to guard. And you've brought in a new center. I believe that offensive line is going to be solid. They were really good at run blocking. That is a forte of Eric Mateos, who is the offensive line coach here. They run block really well right now, even though they haven't played together all that long. And that running back room, the offensive line room is probably the best room on campus. The running back room, I think, is as deep as it's going to be in this current era of college football. Braylon Russell had some issues in the transfer portal. He's back. He's a solid one. They've been running Mike Washington, a transfer from New Mexico State, at 2. That guy's more explosive than I thought he would be. Now, granted, you're playing against your team and not SEC competition, so I'm a little hesitant to go, yeah, Mike Washington is, just a great guy to back up Russell. If they can run the ball effectively with the guys that they have blocking and the guys that they have that they're handing the ball off to, Arkansas has the potential to beat anybody that they play on a daily basis because they can keep the ball away from people. Their issue's going to be, guys, one, I don't know if they've got a number one starting. I don't know if they've got a number one receiver or even a receiver on campus that was as good as a couple of the guys they had last year that are in the NFL draft, and Armstrong and Tesla. And while I think Taylon Green is improving and the ball looks like it explodes out of its hand a little bit more than what it did last year, and his accuracy looks better and he's standing in the pocket, again, he's doing this in practice. He's not doing this in competition. And I just worry about Taylon Green's accuracy and decision-making and putting the ball. I mean, he had a knack of putting the ball in the wrong hands last year. But if he can stop that, I think they can be an 8-4 football team, but they've got a very tough schedule. I mean, Ole Miss is third on the third week out in the year, and then a couple of weeks after that, you're playing Notre Dame. And that's not even before you get into the thick of the SEC when you're playing Tennessee and LSU, and I imagine Auburn. I got to think Auburn will be better next year, and A&M. So, I mean, 8-4, and I think that's about where they could peak. They have the potential, but I think that's also about where they peak.
All right, Eric, man, we appreciate you hopping on. I think Cole would have beat me up if I didn't get at least one football question in with you.
Hey, you got to. By the way, did those guys get spring break? Is that how that worked? Look, I love talking to you, Damian. You know it. I mean, you're my boy, man, because you always came on my show in Tulsa. And I love talking to you. But, well, I mean, hey, how do these guys get out in the middle of the SEC doing what they're doing in the tournament and being spring football? What's up with your boss letting them have the week off?
I mean, they're living a life of luxury, man. I don't know how they got it, man, but they worked it.
They have different rules than us, Eric.
They work the system.
Hey, well, you guys are doing a great job. I appreciate you guys having me on, man. It's always fun coming on here, and just know that the red carpet is out for both of y'all if y'all ever want to jump on with me in Fayetteville. So it's all good.
Absolutely, man. Eric, we appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you very much.
That is Eric G., program director for 92.1 The Ticket down in Fayetteville, Arkansas. On the Higginbotham Hotline, you deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
No quick exit. No quick. No boom. No quick. So okay.
He's a professional.
He actually likes you guys. Okay, that's good.
That's right.
Absolutely. I actually like his answer with Arkansas. I mean, he has some 8-4. That's.
I may not be there yet, but I like the optimism.
Absolutely. We'll continue the conversation on the other side, taking a look at the Sweet 16 and more from college football here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 9:40 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian, Conrad, and John here with you, having some fun. Appreciate y'all hopping on with us. Got a chance to hear from Eric G there from the ticket down in Fayetteville, Arkansas, kind of discussing the Arkansas Razorbacks, and he made a point that they're the most physical team, and compared to Texas Tech, that the way he was talking, it wouldn't even be an upset. Like, he thinks Arkansas could potentially beat them just straight up.
Well, they are spending more money on their players than Texas Tech, so
that's that Jerry Jones and Walmart money.
That's that Tyson chicken nugget money that'll take care of you there. But he was pretty optimistic about football as well. Said he thinks that Arkansas is potentially looking at an 8-4 season this year, which, I mean, look, I think we all have made it known that we are big Sam Pittman fans. Right. And in terms of guys I would, A, want to have a beer with, and B, run through a brick wall for, Sam Pittman would certainly be up there. But I mean, that would be a fantastic season for Arkansas football. I'll just say that.
Because that means they've unlocked another level of Taylor Green on top of that.
Mm-hmm. And go to a bowl game, maybe get to 9 wins. And then you're talking about, it feels like we're rewinding time about 3 years to where we saw Arkansas win 9 games. And I know we were both very high on them coming off of that season, and it didn't pan out.
Yeah, the old KJ Jefferson thing.
Yeah, it didn't pan out, but
neither did Traylon.
New time.
Neither did Traylon Burks for the Tennessee Titans. All we knew that, coming out of Arkansas, that, he's going to be A.J. Brown 2.0.
Oh, he was so good in college.
Was he?
Yeah.
He was.
Big
oven mitts for hands.
Oh, so apparently the Titans have that as a running theme. Someone so good in college, get there and...
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about.
I think that might be the theme that Damian was talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
He was alluding to a different one, but I think we figured it out.
Like John said, they always look better when they're not a Titan. Don't know how.
He also fits the other theme, so it's kind of like a double jeopardy. Is that how that works?
I guess. I'll go with it. But no, like, even looking at on the football side of things on Arkansas, and like the fact you said 8-4, I was like, okay, let me take a look at their schedule and see where you could find those 4 losses. So they open up with Alabama A&M. Sorry, Ryan. He's my cousin there at Alabama A&M. Probably gonna take an L in that one, but it's all good. Then they have Arkansas State. So you're looking at 2-0. You're looking at 2-0.
Is Butch Jones still there?
I think so.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, and then they hit the road to Ole Miss.
Tricky.
Could be. And you're at the road at Memphis after that. That's a rivalry game. I didn't really know that was a thing. Yeah,
and again, I mean, Memphis is solid, but you should be able to win that game. But Memphis, that's a quality win.
Yeah, and then this little stretch they have in the middle of the season.
Such a random time for this game.
They get Notre Dame at home.
Yeah.
They get them at home, which is key. But also off of a national championship, there's no telling what Notre Dame could look. But I expect them to still be a pretty good team. Then you have a bye week. You hit the road. You go to Tennessee.
Revenge game for the Vols in Rocky Top. That's going to be a tough one.
That was the first game where Nico looked like, whoa, he may not be as good as we once thought he was.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back home to take on Texas A&M. Who really knows?
God, they
should have beaten them the past 3 seasons.
I was about to say,
should have beaten them.
Just like we were talking about Texas A&M earlier and how it's like, well, are they really an unknown? Because we know they're probably going to go 8-4. It's like, is that game, we can sit here and act like it's going to be competitive, and it probably will be very competitive, but for whatever reason, that's just a mountain that Arkansas cannot get over.
And A&M gets Arkansas after A&M has Florida.
It's nice.
Interesting.
It's a nice little stretch right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have Auburn at home, a game that the walls started to tumble a little bit early on in the season when you matched up with them last year. Auburn should be improved. Mm-hmm. And from what Eric has said, Arkansas has improved. But I do think
that's a game that Auburn should be able to win.
Right. And 9 times out of 10, Auburn beats Arkansas anyway.
Well, and just with the...
Forgot about that.
I forgot it was after that game. I did not forget the comment, but yeah, I forgot it was after that game. But that's also a game where, looking at the Auburn perspective, to be fair, that's one of those games that if you lose that game, that's probably not a good sign of progress in year 3.
Absolutely. And after that, you get Mississippi State.
Yeah, should be a
dub.
A win.
Then you're on the road at LSU after a bye week.
Yeah, rivalry game.
And then you're on the road at Texas.
rivalry game, kind of.
And then you finish up with Missouri.
Yeah, another rivalry game.
So looking at the schedule, again, it's just, does Taylor Green take that next step? And from what Eric has told us, the offensive line looks like to be the focal point, so they'll keep them upright. And the thing about Arkansas, then it's always been like that, at least since we've been alive, it's they're going to establish the run. Like, that's definitely going to happen. It's just by that time, should they be? It's
if Arkansas is to go 8-4, like Eric was talking about, they're going to have to beat at least one team that they probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Or at least on paper, you would look at the matchup and go, yeah, I don't think Arkansas is going to win that. They would have to win one of those games, whether it's Texas, LSU, Notre Dame, Tennessee, maybe throw Auburn in that mix as well.
Yeah. I mean, Ole Miss hung with almost 60 on them last year, didn't they? Wasn't that the 73? Wasn't that the game they put almost 70 up? And it's like,
I believe you're right.
Man, you can't be that. Those are the games that you're gonna have to steal.
63-31.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and that's where for me, for Arkansas, like I would be more in the 7-5 boat. Granted, Eric has a better idea. He's been getting to see spring practice. He's closer to that team. But yeah, for me, from my perspective, I'd be looking more at like a 7-5, and that would be solid.
Yeah. I think Sam Pittman keeps his job for it, but like I don't. Arkansas is probably one of those teams where they are very reasonable about their expectations every single year. That it never really feels like you fall off a cliff, but you also never take that next jump to be elite. Like they're caught in that middle where, like again, they're losing by 33 points to Ole Miss. But then they're beating up on, they take Texas A&M to the wire. They're beating Auburns and things like that. So it's like, where is Sam Pittman in the midst of all of this? And it's very tough read to get on Arkansas on the football front. But hey, they're in the Sweet 16 with John Calipari in basketball. So they're trending upward.
Thankfully, A&M and Arkansas are doing away with that neutral site game, so it returns to a home and home, at least for the foreseeable future. So
no more Jerry World,
at least not for now. I mean, maybe if they end up in a Cotton Bowl or something else, like, well, I don't know about Cotton Bowl, but maybe if they end up in some kind of postseason, maybe that's the only other way. But nope, they'll get. I think Arkansas State's in Little Rock, and everything else at home will be in Razorback Stadium.
Arkansas could be like an unknown, man. I mean, I was high on Taylor. I think the potential of Taylor Green is up there. But
I was about to say, you were really high on him yesterday.
And it's there. It's there.
He looks the part.
Consistent. Yeah, exactly. 205-834-9450. We'll get to some of your text messages that we missed throughout the day and have some fun on the way out. Keep it locked right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 9:51 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian, Conrad, and John having some fun.
Him and Will Levis do have mayonnaise in common. The whole universe was in a hot, dense state.
Come on, man. This is wild.
14 million years ago.
This is wild. I thought we were going to leave that one for Mac and Cube after dark.
Nope.
See?
Nope.
Just bleeds on in, man.
That's science history. It's all a big mystery.
Nope. We drop it right.
Big
Bang!
Oh, it's good when people can be good sports about things, though, right?
Is that really a good
Actually,
sport?
I think it is a sport.
Yeah. In a way. That's our homeboy, though.
I meant more just like the attitude of.
It's all about the mindset. It's all the mindset.
It's a different meaning to when the rubber meets the road.
205-834.
Thought it was plastic.
9450. Gavin texted in, going back to our wonderful Titans discussion that we had early on in the show. He says the Titans are going to take Cam Ward, Damian, and he's going to lead us to our first Super Bowl title. Bank on it. Tighten up, baby. That's the kind of mindset we got to have.
You didn't even say that.
I was more realistic.
Okay, there it is.
Listen,
Right,
he has the blind optimism. I can rock with it. Hey, I'm with you, Gavin. I believe, again, we are a Cam Ward away.
Mm-hmm.
We're a Cam Ward
away from next year's number one.
I was about to say you're a Cam Ward away from.
Man, we're getting there, man.
And then you'll probably draft Arch Manning and then start all over again.
Just rinse and repeat. I mean, when you look at our history,
if
quarterback
you get
position,
the number one pick, let's say 3 or 4 years in a row, you're bound to hit on somebody, right? They can't all be busts.
No.
Right?
Again, we're getting him this year. We're not worried about the top 5 for the next foreseeable future after that.
Because you're going to be drafting in the back half of the...
Exactly. Back half of the first round as one of those playoff teams that, hey, we're kind of in that 20 to 32 mold.
I like the optimism. You're trying to convince yourself.
No, I'm not. Like, I'm there.
You literally admitted an hour ago that you were trying to convince
yourself. We are closer with Cam Ward than we are with anybody else as our quarterback.
Anybody else?
The quarterbacks that we have on roster now.
Okay.
The quarterbacks that we have on the roster now, we are Cam Ward away compared to a Will Levis away, which just doesn't sound smart.
Away from what? Third in the division?
No.
That would be an improvement.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do this again with y'all. How about we all support Gavin and say, hey, tighten up. Tighten up. We're getting there.
We will say that when you show us a receipt for a Cam Ward jersey.
Well, after April.
No, you can get it now. You ain't gotta wait.
Nah.
Make the custom one.
Yeah.
Nah. It won't be here in time. It
won't be here in time for what?
And where I get mine, I think that the tariffs have kind of like gotten some of those, so I wouldn't be able to get for the same price.
We didn't ask for the jersey. We said the receipt.
I got to work with it. My taxes ain't hit back yet.
So,
okay. I don't have, those crazy expenses.
That's good.
Just like them Titans, it's always something. There's always an excuse. Couldn't immediately rock with your boy. You're ready to put him out. But then like Drake, as soon as all of a sudden he starts winning, you know what? I said this from day one. We always said that he was going, no.
I was blinded by this. I was like Gavin. I was just blinded by the optimism. It was like, hey, we're building it around him. Mm-hmm. He should be able to take the next step. He never took the next step. He went backwards.
Mm-hmm.
He went backwards. It's unfortunate.
Okay. Well, we'll drop it for now. We'll give you like a minute and a half of the show where you don't have to wallow in the Titans, because we'll go to a text that CJ from Trustful sent in. I thought this was a good. He seems like he has some things to get off his chest about Auburn and their quarterback situation. So CJ writes in, why should we believe Jackson Arnold's the savior for Auburn at QB? He couldn't get it done at Oklahoma, so why should we think he can have success at Auburn in the best football conference in the nation, where the spotlight is much brighter and more is expected from you? The guy lost the starting job last year. I know why they believe this guy is good, because he beat Alabama just like their head coach. Auburn once again making decisions based on who can beat Bama.
Say it with your chest, CJ. I mean...
It's going to be okay, CJ.
Yeah, but the talent is there.
It is.
The talent was there.
Well,
it is.
You know what? It sounds like Auburn's the Titans.
That's what I said.
Keep rotating around quarterbacks.
That's literally
maybe
what I said.
Maybe this one.
And so the full circle, the zeros thing that Saber was talking about, undrafted free agent, Peyton Thorne. Hugh Freeze says he looked really good at Pro Day, throwing it the best that he's seen him throw it.
And to pay him back, you can take Don up to a Titans game, see your homeboy together. But go in the Stallion section, but in Tennessee. Act like some wild boys.
3-man front's next.